reflect those of Yoakley Scott Corporation and your sports network.
Yeah, I've been closer to Jesus before, so can you help me out? Oh, can you help me out? Am I on my own? Am I on my own? But can you help me out? Am I on my own? Am I on my own? Or can you help me out? Can you help me out? I've been scared to look in my soul. I've been afraid I would follow the road. Yeah, afraid of the things I've been told.
Hello, everybody. Welcome into a Wednesday edition of Running Point, brought to you by Greenwood Chevrolet in Austin Town. I'm Anthony Hartwig, as always, joined by Ty Bartell. And today we have a special guest in the studio, head coach of the girls and boys soccer team at Salem, Mike Bailey. Coach, thanks for giving us your time. I know this year it's got to be a little bit more valuable than ever before.
A little bit, but yeah, excited to be here. First time here in the studio, and what an awesome place. And thanks for having me. I appreciate all you guys do for our sport.
We definitely look forward to more and more guests in the studio. We thank you for coming down, of course. And we start with an interview right off the bat. And explain to us what's kind of going on with the Salem soccer program and the tri-coach kind of system that you guys have set up for yourselves.
Yeah, so it's a really exciting time for us. You have Kent Paulini, who was last year's girls head coach, Travis Ziegler, who was last season's boys head coach, and then myself. We've kind of teamed up as tri head coaches here. It's been a really great experience so far. Travis and I, we talk all the time. I was his assistant coach last year at Salem when Kent was looking for some assistant coaches on the girls side, and Travis and I got to thinking, and we decided, let's approach Kent and see what he thinks. And the three of us met, and we kind of talked, and we worked out some things we thought might be a problem. And then we told Kent, hey, take your time here, because this is a big time commitment. And, he's getting married here during season at some point, late October, early November. And so we wanted him to make sure he was on board. He took his time and came back with some questions, and we sorted everything out. And all three of us were ready for it. We're ready to make a go of this and give our kids the best opportunity.
Coach, my question for you, interestingly enough, coaching both boys and girls soccer, some might think of all the similarities that might come with it, and we already know it's a full plate. Talk to me a little bit about the differences in coaching boys and girls. What are those differences, and how do you kind of incorporate them on the field?
To be honest with you, we've kind of taken an approach that there's not a lot of difference. It's all about personalities, whether that's on the boys' side or the girls' side. It's knowing your players, knowing how they respond. Some of them need that extra push. Some of them, need that extra supportive words. And we've kind of taken that approach. Like, we're going to coach this the same way, whether it's a girls' team, whether it's a boys' team. We're going to expect the same things. We're going to hold everybody to that same standard. And I think the kids have really, really responded well to it. It's a great group of kids. Both sides, we've got good leadership on both sides with the girls and boys, and it's something that just is continuing to build and build as the season grows here. Over the summer was a big time for us, as it is for all the programs. Had good numbers all summer long on the girls side. Boys side, our numbers are a little bit lower, around 18, 19 boys in total. But between vacations and work and everything, we still had some good numbers. It's our approach is pretty much the same. Like I said, it's just about knowing individual players mainly for us, and knowing how each player ticks.
So when we cover boys and girls basketball, it's usually mostly the same, but there are slight differences in strategic ways that you coach a game. Are there any strategic or fundamental differences in girls and boys soccer, or is it pretty much, X's and O's the same thing?
There's definitely some differences. The boys, we tend to play a lot more possession style, but don't get me wrong, we still push that with the girls. The only reason why we maybe do things a tad bit different is we have on the girls' side, two really, really strong strikers up top, and sophomore Riley Hutton and senior Abby Perry. They're both completely different players, and it's awesome for us to have, like a two-headed monster there up top on the girls' side, because Riley is, one of the fastest players in the area, and she's great at finishing the ball in a one-on-one scenario with the keeper. Abby Perry is just phenomenal on and off the ball. She's done a really great job here in the early part of doing what is asked for her and maybe taking on a couple new roles. But that's more so we're catering more to what our team is as opposed to how we perceive, girls soccer played one way, boys soccer played the other.
Coach, my question for you, it's a two-parter question, actually. So my first question for you is the culture being what it is, or the culture that you've created over the years. Do you plan on incorporating it to be the same on both the boys and girls side? I know you said that there's similarities in the way you play with that and the culture. Second part of the question, do you find it easier or harder, or do you expect it to be easier or harder to recruit and get that community involvement being both the boys and girls soccer coach as far as soccer as a sport is concerned?
Well, to touch on the culture one, that's actually been one of our huge points of emphasis, especially as, Kent and Travis and I as a coaching staff. We want this soccer culture of Salem to really be about, we show up and we train the right way every day, no matter who's coaching that session. We get after it. We treat each other with respect. We do things the right way. That is our biggest focus as a coaching staff, is making sure culture-wise, both the boys and the girls are on the same page. We hold everybody to the same standard. And, to talk about, community involvement, a big thing with that, we're actually really blessed in Salem. We have some great people that follow our programs on both sides, and bringing everything together with the same coaching staff and the players knowing each other even more so than you typically would. It's really developing into something awesome. And it's just the start of it. And there's lots of great things that we have planned. And, we've had fundraisers that the girls team just ran by themselves in the past. And now we've incorporated the boys to where both sides are doing it. And we're just trying to really make sure we treat both programs exactly the same, because that's what those kids deserve.
With this new system with the three coaches, I imagine it takes a really great chemistry between you guys and a really great camaraderie between you guys. Talk about that dynamic and what it's like to have that with a group of three coaches and being able to just work together so smoothly.
It's been really great. Like I said, there's a past relationship between the three of us. I coached Kent back in the day when he was like a U14 travel player for a season. Travis coached Kent when he was in high school. So we know each other, and I've known Travis for years. I actually used to work construction for Travis back in like my early 20s. For a couple of years I worked with him, and it was just he and I building houses, garages, all the good stuff. So there was already, camaraderie there between the three of us, and we all three have been on the same page as far as we wouldn't attempt to do this, because it is something very different, something outside the box. And we wouldn't attempt to do it if we didn't feel that, one, we could make it work individually each, but also just as important, that we could give the kids the best experience possible there. It's been a really, really great experience. Like I said, we have also an assistant coach on the boys' side, Garrett Dickey. And then we have kind of like a team manager, momager, who's a younger player, or former younger player, Emma Minnemeyer. She's on the girls' side in that capacity. So, the five of us the six of us every week, we meet at my building and we have a coaches meeting, and we always say there's an hour and a half time limit here, and then we're out of here. And we're always there 2.5 hours. The meeting ends usually about an hour and a half, but then we start talking and we're hanging around, and it just never ends. So
that rule goes right out the window.
It does. It's gone like instantly. We've done it one time, I think, where we've had the meeting last an hour and a half. And to be honest with you, that was probably because there was a USA men's soccer match going on, and we all wanted to get out of there and go watch
the Gold Cup against Mexico.
Yeah, awesome. Great match. Yeah.
I know you did this a little bit earlier, Coach, but just to touch on it again, talking about how passionate Salem fans are, highlight a couple other players too on both the girls and boys teams for us to watch out for that aren't Salem fans that are watching in this year. And also, if I had a ticket to buy one boys and one girls Salem soccer game, which games am I going to this year?
Ooh, some tough questions.
Yeah,
okay, I like that. Though. Well, let's start with the boys. So, I'm sorry, that chair keeps squeaking. That's my fault. So on the boys' side of it, definitely, one of our returning captains from last year is Max Kometz. Going to be, we're not sure exactly where Max is going to play just yet because he can play many roles. And he's an awesome leader for us. So we're still figuring out some pieces there. We've got some talent all over the board with the boys and the girls. Up top on the boys side, we have sophomores Cade Pasco and Lance Bailey. Cade is a player who really dedicates himself to the game. He plays club ball. He plays year round. Really, really improved his game this offseason. Tim Stevens and AR Berlin. AR is an outside midfielder for us, and you want to see somebody work. Come watch AR Berlin work on the sideline during a game. This kid gets up, he gets back. We are demanding of our outside mids, and he responds every time. Tim is a player, again, another kid that took this off season and really, really applied himself. Went and played some club, learned a lot, really took a serious approach to things. And it's paying off for him big time. He's going to probably be somewhere in the middle for us, whether that's an attacking mid or a holding mid, but he's doing a phenomenal job. We've also got senior Caleb Schaefer. He was an outside back for us. He's probably going to fill that role again, but just somebody that is super quiet, super quiet, but he is like a lead by example kid. Shows up, gets a job done, never complains, is always working hard, just somebody you can really, really trust. Then we have, at least 2 freshmen that are going to be in that starting lineup. Our goalkeeper, Andrew Beck, we call him Big Andy. He's a big, tall kid. Not a goalkeeper by trade, but I tell you what, one of the things I do is I train our goalkeepers on both sides, and he is one of the most coachable kids I've been around. He has made leaps and bounds, an improvement. And then Corey Plunkett is another kid. He's going to be in the middle for us probably, or maybe on the outside. And if you saw him play, you would not think he is a freshman. Another kid that takes the game very seriously, plays outside, plays inside, gets the ball on his foot, he communicates. Some really, really good stuff. And there's a couple other, really strong players still. We actually we got one of the Salem basketball players, John Nall, is coming out, and to have, a 6'2", 6'3" kid that can maybe jump over the goal on a good day if he wanted to. It's an awesome addition to have. We've got Camden Sampson, another outside mid or fullback that's really coming into his own. There's just some really good pieces all around. And, our freshman class on the boys side, phenomenal. There's 9 kids in that class now. And, we've got 2 that are probably going to be starters. And then you got another 2 that are looking at getting some significant minutes, probably in Luke Davis and Troy Gibson. And then there's some other guys just battling in the mix there. It's we're not deep in numbers, but the talent is there, and we feel very confident in what we have.
One of the things that I have to ask as someone that is trying to get into soccer, trying to learn the lingo to cover it better. I'm sure you get a lot of casual fans with kids like you said, like Noel, who's coming off the basketball program, just trying to get into soccer. What's one of the common misconceptions that you have to constantly correct people about your sport, or one of the things that is the hardest for people to kind of comprehend?
Mostly
it's people think offsides, soccer. Right?
Offside's a huge one. That's a huge one. That's always tough to explain to people. But I think the misconception is everybody thinks that soccer is this game that's played on this big field, and there's 11v11. You take a ball and you kick it around and you put it in a big goal. And that is not the case. There's so many intricate little tiny details that matter, whether, just like any sport, whether, you open this way or you turn this way, little things that matter. But offsides for sure is the one that gets everybody. No ifs, ands, or buts about it. I'm
definitely trying offsides. Sometimes when you watch the replay for like one of the international games,
right,
they call offsides, and you look at all the angles and you still say, I don't see it.
Right. It's one of those things. And, to be a referee, because I used to be an official as well, it's a tough job. And, like you see, like you're talking about the internet where they have VAR, the virtual assistant referee, and it's got its good things and it's got its bad things. But you're seeing it's like somebody's sleeve, just the tiniest little things like that. And it's a little bit.
The goalie actually counts as one of the defenders, right? So that you have to be in.
Well, yes and no. So basically,
I've seen that end up in a weird way where like the goalie counts as one of the 2.
Right. So to be offsides, basically, you have to be behind the second to last defender. Typically, that's not the goalie, because the goalie's, he or she is at the goal there. But between that goalie, your last defender, if you're in that space as an offensive player and that ball is played to you and you're actively involved, you're in an offside position. Yeah. But if that goalie comes out and a defender switches, that can change. Absolutely. And let me touch on the girls here and then answer that question, because I've heard. So the girls, it's really, really exciting. the boys I know from last year a little bit, and we've got a bunch of new faces, awesome, and the girls are all new faces to me. I was fortunate enough, Kent had me come in last year. I ran a team camp for them in the preseason in July and got to know some of those girls there. But there's an incredible wealth of talent there. Like I already talked about, Riley Hutton and Abby Perry up top. You've got junior McKaylin Murphy going to be in the middle, and McKaylin is one of the most underrated players in our area, in my opinion. What she can do and what she can create and what she means to our team is so much. You've got Abby Davidson usually behind her. She's a junior as well. Abby plays strong. She's getting her touch back on the ball and everything. She plays basketball as well, so she was gone a lot over the summer doing her AAU and stuff like that. So she's just getting back into the thick of it. You've got senior Clara Double, who plays out wide for us, does a phenomenal job. She was phenomenal last night against Canfield. Just worked her tail off, just up and down and in and out and open to coaching. Chloe Wilhelm is on the left side for us, another player that we're very excited about. She, again, a player that plays club, dedicated herself this offseason, went and had a great offseason, came back with a bunch of skill. Defensively, we've got Bree Sabula out on the right side right now. Bree's going to be a junior. Bree's done some training as well this winter. Another good athlete to have. We've got senior Krista Barley kind of playing our stopper position right now. And Krista is the energy of the team. She's the one that if I ask a question, she's gonna answer, and she's gonna be the loudest about it. We've got Annika Murray playing kind of like a sweeper role, and it's brand new to her. And talk about a girl that is coachable, like just shows up every day. And I do a lot with the defense, and I'm on her, but in a good way. And she takes it the right way. She knows that I'm just here to help her. And she, every single time she's just improving there. Our left back is Hannah Gaither, and Hannah is incredibly talented, really, really smooth player, fun to watch, intelligent with the ball, really starting to come into her own for a leadership role. And it's nice to see that. And then we've got our goalkeeper who, Sam Moore, senior. I love Sam. She and I have a special relation because I coach the goalkeepers, and we really get after it. And I train my goalkeepers in a very unique way, do different things with them. And she's responded really, really well to everything. And I couldn't be more pleased with her. To go back on the games you're talking about, there was one game on the boys' side. I mean, to me as a coach, it's going to be Marlington, league rival. They have, much like the West Branch girls, they have ran the league for 4 or 5 years now. Really, really strong program, churning out great players consistently. Clayton Cowgill is their coach out there. I know Clayton well, and we have a good relationship. But that's probably the one, because in my opinion, I hope that's what's going to come down to an Eastern Buckeye Conference championship game there, because in our conference, we only play everybody once instead of twice like a lot of conferences do, which is a nice thing in my opinion. Girls side, it's West Branch. It's West Branch.
Yeah,
absolutely.
We've already talked to Coach Figo. We know the dominance of West Branch, and you guys have the opportunity to try to end that a little bit this year.
Yeah, huge amounts of respect for Cheryl and her program. She does an awesome job there. Like I said, it's a rivalry, but it's a respectful rivalry as well. Like we understand, what she's done there, and we're excited for our opportunity to try to take our place. We're very excited.
Coach, you have this unique ability of coaching both boys and girls, so you do see the both sides of it. So I want to ask you this question, because me and Anthony have talked about this, and it's been touched upon. In the high school level, soccer seems to be wildly popular, public perception, both boys and girls. Same thing goes through the college ranks. In your opinion, why, when we get to the professional level and the national level, the popularity seems to stay with the girls' side and the support, but it kind of falls off for the boys' national team, or the men's national team, I should say?
So, I will respectfully disagree with you a little bit there.
I love it. We love disagreement.
So
conflict.
The men's team, I mean, if you look like at the American Outlaws, I don't know if you've ever heard them. They're like the supporter group of both the men's and women's national team. The game of soccer is continually growing in this country, and it's far beyond if you're not like an actual regular fan of it, you may not understand where it's at right now. But if you watch even the Major League Soccer games, if you go and watch these games and see these fan bases cheer on their teams, like Columbus with their brand new stadium, there's Austin FC, the LA teams, there's all these Major League Soccer programs, teams that are just watching the game, watching their fans, the drums, the smoke, the flags, the tifos, like everything is just awesome. It's just a great environment, and it's growing more and more and more. And one of the big things that we have going is the TV part of it now. You can catch an MLS game on the ESPN Plus package almost nightly anymore. And then the same thing with, the English Premier League on Saturdays, La Liga, which is the Spanish league. There's all sorts of great soccer available to American fans now. And it's just a matter of knowing where it's at. And it's hugely growing. The girls take a huge popularity boost because that women's national team has been so good for so long. They've been so dominant. I know they lost obviously in the Olympics there the other night, but they're just solid. They're fun to watch. It's, and everybody loves winners. And when you're winning World Cups, because I hope that I'm alive at some point to see the United States win a World Cup. Do I know if that will ever happen? Not sure. Not sure, but it's growing and growing. And that group on the men's national team is going to be very, very good and better qualified for the World Cup this year.
To continue that discussion, we've all seen what wonders the women's national team has done for the growth of girls soccer at the youth level and how much it's really helped the popularity of it grow over the last decade. Can you talk about what you've seen from your perspective over the growth of numbers and more kids are getting into soccer because of what they see in the TV deals and the fact that it's much more accessible than maybe it used to be?
Yeah, they've made great strides on the women's side. It's a lot of girls taking the game more serious, seeing that there is more to it than just playing high school, that you can go play college, you can get a scholarship to play in college and things like that, and get some of all of your school paid for. We're seeing at the youth level, like we just ran our youth camp for both the boys and girls. We had over 90 campers out for the 3 days, and it was awesome to see. And we had just as many girls as we did boys. And it's, something that girls are finally realizing, like there's more to, I can get a scholarship out of this, if I dedicate myself. And you are seeing a lot of girls, really take on going to play club in the off season, seeking out training, just all those things. And it's really nice to see the girls game grow. And it starts with that interest from the women's national team. Like I said, everybody loves winners. And when they're winning like that, people are going to tune in. It doesn't matter if you're female or male, you're going to watch that if you're a soccer fan. And even if you're not, the regular soccer, if you're a casual soccer fan, the U.S. women are playing in a big match, there's a fair chance you're going to tune in and see what it's about and try to learn a little bit more about the game.
Coach, you talked about too the popularity growing in soccer. We know though years ago that wasn't the case. It's been a world-renowned sport. It's been something that the whole world's kind of been focused on, but the U.S. has been lagging behind. Talk to me a little bit about what your initial interest was in soccer, why you got into it, what made you passionate about it, and what got you into soccer coaching and got you involved.
Sure. So a lot of it falls on my father. My dad was a football player at YSU, and he decided he didn't want me to play football. He gave me the opportunity to when I was in junior high. Like a lot of parents seem to kind of do that. Like once they hit junior high, you can make a choice. But my dad really pushed soccer on myself and my one of my older brothers, and it was something I just fell in love with. I loved every aspect of it. I was lucky enough. My dad was my coach for the majority of the sports growing up that I played, and having him there pushing me, that sort of thing. And it just became something, I was fortunate to be a quality player at the high school level and got a college scholarship to go to Notre Dame College in Cleveland. I played for a season and realized very quickly I had no chance of becoming a professional soccer player. So I moved on to different endeavors. But the coaching aspect of it, I think just comes from a lot. Like my dad, when I was little, always telling me, be a leader, be a leader, be a leader. And having that instilled in me, and then having good coaches throughout my life that I was able to learn from and respect a lot, really turned me on to coaching. And it's just something that I started, like, I think the first time I coached a team, I was 20 years old, and I was a U14 travel coach of the Salem program. And it was an awesome experience. And I caught the bug, and I left a little while to go to Florida to umpire, because that was what I did for a while for a living. I umpired for college on down. But ultimately came back, and I'm not going anywhere now. I just love coaching a high school game. There's nothing like it.
When you got started in coaching at such a young age, who were some of the coaches that you kind of looked to or looked up to for guidance and for things to help you grow your coaching ability?
One thing that I always say, a good coach never stops learning. Never. And, when I went into that first, 20 years old coaching, my father was the main person. I had some great coaches, like I said, in high school. I had Tom Wright was our boys soccer coach. I had a really great experience with him. Played for Bert Stellers and George Spack at Salem for basketball. I say now I have 4 pillars of who I am as a coach. One is my father, who taught me how to be a leader and how important it was to be a leader. And then I have John Collin is on there.
That's a name.
Yeah. I took, I specifically went and tried to coach basketball because I wanted to learn from him and the rest of that staff, TJ Irons and, wanted to learn from them. That was the whole reason. And the one thing I took away, my pillar of John Collin is that you can't stop learning, because you talk about a guy, 46, 47, 48 years coaching now, and he didn't let the game pass him up. He's as modern as it can be. You know what I mean? Using huddle, using all the things, developing his style. So I learned that from him. Bert Stellers, my basketball coach, the thing I learned from him was how to prepare for a game. You talk about a guy who had his teams. We knew the other team's plays. You know what I mean? We knew exactly what was going on, and it was just an incredible thing to see somebody put so much of themselves into it. And I take a lot of that as well. And then the last one is my college soccer coach, Michael McBride. He's an English guy, and just so passionate about it, and built a really incredible program at Notre Dame College there. And the main thing I took from him was he made us be a team, and how important that was, because my college team, we had players from all over the world. We had players from Europe. My roommate was from Scotland. And so it was just an awesome experience. And he taught me how important it was for us to be a team. And so those are my 4 pillars of what I base everything I do around as a coach. And I've been very fortunate to coach with some great people and have some great people coach me.
Coach, talking a little bit about professional soccer, looking at professional men's, women's, whether it be in the U.S. Premier League, what have you, talk to me about some players that you've watched over the years that you might point out to your players now and say, that's how you should play or behave or act attitude-wise on the soccer field.
I like that question.
Yeah, that's a great question. One of the biggest things that we talk about is our attitude. As players. And there's a saying that I stole from my college coach called stay even. It's something that I've developed. I've said it for years. I've said it when I was at Carrollton, when I was at South Range, now Salem. It's something I live by. Basically what that stay even means is, soccer is an incredibly emotional game. Score a goal, emotions go up, let up a goal, emotions go down, bad pass. You know what I mean? It's all over the place constantly. So we talk about staying even. So we're here the whole time. Score a goal. Awesome. Celebrate it real quick. Let's get back to the half line and then let's get ready for the next set here. And just keeping an even keel. Some of those players, like professional, like you're talking about, you got to start with Messi. You got to Lionel Messi for Barcelona. Hopefully we'll see. He may be on the move. We'll find out here in a couple of days, but you talk about a player that just works. And doesn't complain and doesn't do. I think one of the biggest turnoffs for the average or non-soccer fan is the fouling and the rolling around on the ground that happens afterwards. It gets to me. It drives me nuts sometimes. But one thing I always say to people don't realize, the professional players, they wear metal studs on their shoes. And if you've ever had a soccer shoe in your hand, it is thin. It's made to be thin so that way you can feel the ball, you can touch the ball, and it's light so you can sprint. So when somebody stomps on you, when a grown man or grown woman playing hard who makes hundreds of thousands of dollars a week to play the game steps on your foot real hard, that's gonna hurt, and you're gonna roll around.
That's why slide tackles are so discouraged a little bit.
Yeah, well, it's
dangerous.
It is. When I grew up, slide tackling was a huge part of the game. And now I think a little bit has to do with there's so much turf involved now. Everybody doesn't want those turf burns because those can be pretty gnarly. But it is something that we do coach our players. Stay up. And don't get me wrong, there's times where you need to go to the ground to make a tackle and things like that. But for the most part, we want our kids staying up, and playing the ball and just winning tackles standing. But yeah, professional side, Messi's where you start, and it's almost where you start and end. He's everything that you could want your player to emulate. Obviously, he's probably, between he and Ronaldo, the greatest players of all time. But he doesn't complain. He doesn't go down easy. He just battles and battles and battles, and it's so fun to watch him play.
One of the first names that comes to mind when I think of men's soccer is Landon Donovan, and watching what he was able to do with with the men's national team back when they weren't, they were qualifying for World Cups at least, and they weren't as embarrassing. So.
Yeah. I always say, and I'm not taking credit for this. I saw this somewhere, and I've just adapted it. But I always say that I don't think anybody's made me hug or high five more strangers in my life than Landon Don.
Right. When we talked to a couple of other coaches around the area, they were telling us that there's no junior high programs for most schools, and I'm sure you're dealing with it too. What kind of things does Salem do to kind of develop the youth before they get to you in high school?
Yeah, that's one of the biggest issues facing our sport in this area. And there are some people, they are putting together a junior high league, and there's some teams that are in it. And not having those kids have like a school sport sanction, you know what I mean? Because
right.
once they get into middle school, you're playing basketball, you're playing football, you got track, you got cross country, and it's all middle school affiliated. And now, soccer doesn't have that. We're trying to make that change. We have not done that, and Salem joined that junior high league yet because we're just not at that point. And it's a very, very new thing that just started within the last couple of years. But one of the things that we are trying to do, last year COVID ruined a lot of our plans, obviously, like it did for everybody. But one of the things that we as coaches want to do, we want to go spend time with these youth kids and be present and let them get to know us. So that way, even though there's not an affiliated junior high, middle school program, like we're still here for you. We still care about you. We still want you to come and play soccer. We still want you to be a part of our program. So whether that's, doing a youth camp, and we allow the youth players to come for a youth night where they get in for free, they get to play on the field at halftime for, the 5 or 6, 7 minutes there. But getting kids to come be ball boys and ball girls during the game, so they get involved, including them in, announcements and whatnot, let the players run through, just little things that we can do to create, again, going back to that great soccer culture that we think that we have definitely started, and it's just going to grow.
And it just to keep up on that, I imagine one of the big things about getting a junior high program that's school affiliated is that you guys will be able to have a little bit of control over who's running it and what they're instilling and the culture they're instilling. That way, they're running the same things you guys are. They're doing the same things you guys are. So is it hard to kind of just they're playing for whatever club coach they're playing for and hope that they're teaching them things that will come to you and be the same things that go into your line of coaching?
We, that's the ideal scenario. We're actually very fortunate, Sam. We have Brad Davis is the president of the youth league in Salem. He also does like the U14 travel, basically the older kids, but he's super involved throughout. And he, one of the things that we're most excited about on the boys side is we have this pretty decent sized freshman class. And the best thing about this freshman class is that they're friends. They hang out together. They do all, you know what I mean? And that's so important for building purposes. And that all started with Brad teaching those kids and keeping them together and having them play tournaments. And he's still there because he still has another son coming up. And there's good things happening in our youth league. There really is. So there's not this massive gap by the time they get to us, whether it's on the boys or girls side. And that's a huge help. And there's always, of course, high school is a completely different monster compared to, what they're facing. They're practicing, 2 times a week, playing 1 or 2 times, and then you come into high school. It's fun. We have a freshman, Evan Van Horn. I love him to death. And he's like, do we practice like 5-6 days a week? I'm like, yeah, Evan, we do. He's like, oh, okay. And then, and he's awesome. He's one of those freshmen that just, he's learning and he's doing a great job.
It's a culture shock.
It is. Like, oh, we practice 5-6 days. I was like, yeah, and we have film. And things like that. Like we do it the right way. He's like, oh, okay, awesome. So yeah, it's always interesting.
Talking about all those years through soccer, Coach, and your early roots starting, you said, with your father getting you into soccer. Talk to me throughout the years. What would Mike Bailey, the coach, tell Mike Bailey, the player, looking back on everything now?
That's
calm down would be the first thing I would tell myself. I was a very aggressive player. I started off as a goalie, ended up as a striker at Salem. But the main thing I would tell me, just relax a little bit. I was notorious to get yellow cards, but they were for physical play. They weren't for mouthing off to the referee or something along those lines. It was just being very physical. And it was just something. And the other thing I would tell myself is to take my training way more serious. That's always the blessing of being a coach. I think most coaches are nowhere near who they are as a coach as they were as a player, because you've learned so much about what not to do in a way that you learn this is the correct way to do it. And here's how you go about it. Everything from nutrition to fitness level, to, like I said, being calm, relaxing, and taking your training more serious. Those are 4 things for sure that I would change about myself as a player.
You were the assistant for the boys program last year, and you've been in the boys soccer, community. Now, when you do both boys and girls, did you have to really dive into the area's girls soccer scene, try to figure out who's really good, who the best teams are, what players to watch out for, build coaching relationships and things like that? Or were pillars of that already kind of built into just the soccer community?
For me, pillars are there for that a lot. I used to run Youngstown soccer scene on Twitter, which covered the whole Youngstown area, boys and girls. So I always had an idea of who was, who was winning, who was losing, who the great players were. I'm a huge soccer fan. And one of the hardest things about this year with coaching both teams is I go to games all the time. Now my time is going to be a little bit more limited there. So I'm not going to get to go to as many as I normally would. But there is a learning curve, though. Don't get me wrong on the girls' side. Like last night going in, we scrimmaged at Canfield versus Canfield and Niles, had a try scrimmage, and everybody knows Canfield's the class of the area. Everybody's chasing them. They've been the dominant team for quite a while now. Phil Simone does a phenomenal job there, has for decades, literally decades. And then you've got Niles, who I know their coach very well because he's the president of the Coaches Association. He's been around a long time. But, going into that game, I couldn't have told you the name of one of the girls' players on either side. But with that being said, the traditions, and just like a lot in high school, traditions usually ring true year to year for a lot of it. And every now and then you get those underdogs that come out and have an awesome season. It's great. But we knew we were going to have 2 quality opponents last night, and that's what we had. We had 2 quality games both times that we played. It was awesome. But there is for sure a learning curve for myself, not so much necessarily for Travis. Travis was the girls' coach at Salem for 10 years, so he's well versed in the girls' game. So I definitely have more of a learning curve going into that than the other 2 for sure.
Throughout the years in soccer here, Coach, we talk about how the game has changed a little bit, how you said it was a little bit more rough and tough back then. Talk to me, though, a little bit about the challenges players have to face now that they didn't necessarily have to face back then, both within and outside of the sport.
In our area, the biggest thing you see change, like, the Youngstown area used to kind of get dogged on a little bit by the rest of the state because it was a lot of long ball. And what I mean by long ball is teams would kind of get the ball and they wouldn't really possess it very much. They would just, have an athletic striker and pump the ball long and hope that guy or girl could chase it down and put it in the back of the net. There wasn't a whole lot of thought to it. That's drastically changed in this area. And, a big reason for that is definitely you have more players more coaches that played the game growing up instead of, dad that coached football or played football all of his life and never even had the opportunity to play soccer because it wasn't even a sport. He was coaching everybody growing up and just kind of doing the best that they could. Now you have guys and girls that are coming back from the college ranks or study the game or were really high level high school players coming back and coaching. And that's why you're seeing our area change so much. You had Howland winning the state championship last year, Mooney playing for the state championship, my South Range boys making the Final Four. South Range has had, even before I was there, made the Final Four in a state championship game. And you're starting to see that happen where our teams are definitely stronger and more prevalent in the whole of the picture in the state now. And it's a huge thing for us. But players in themselves, they're asked to do so much more than what they used to be. They're asked to make quick decisions. They're asked to make, dedicate themselves to their nutrition, being able to run day and night. Like the fitness level that has to go into it is wild. And our players at Salem on both sides do a phenomenal job of getting their fitness level ready, because I always kind of say, if we can't run, we can't play, guys. It's just one of those things. You got to run in this game. And so there's just so many things that boil down. It's so tough to be a student athlete right now. It's a grind because practices are different than they used to be, if you know what I mean. They're stronger now. There's film sessions. Like we never watched film in high school. We didn't have the tools to do it, and it's one of those things now where you're asking so much of players that sometimes as a coach, you got to take a second and be like, okay, we need to give a day off, or we need to have a light day today because we're asking a whole lot out of these kids. And that's exactly what they are. They're still kids, they still have to get their studies in. They still have social lives. They still have things to do for their families. So it's a lot being a student athlete right now.
We've covered Salem for a while. They're one of our original 4 at YSN. And one of the things you realize really quickly is how many multiple sport athletes they have and how easily the coaches kind of work together and share their athletes. And I know Matt Freeman is a big part of that as the AD. Talk about what it's like to work in the athletics department at Salem and to work with all these different coaches and to almost have a seamless relationship with the different sports.
Yeah, it's a great place. Matt has done a great job of hiring great coaches and keeping great coaches in the system. And credit to him and the rest of the administrators for letting us do what we're doing. Let us being outside of the box on this, and having the 3 coaches. But it is something that takes communication, and that communication happens. And you got to realize that there's give and take because, like you said, multiple sport athletes, everybody needs time with their kids as much as possible. And you also got to realize, like, you can't just run these kids into the ground, that they are kids and they will break down at some point, even though they don't ever think that they will. But it's just one of those things that we're really fortunate in Salem, great coaches all around, and everybody's willing to work together.
Having good coaches leads to good experiences and good chemistry. But talk to me, Coach, about a bad experience that you've had within the sport that's helped shape you as a coach.
I don't. That's a great one.
Bring up bad memories.
Right? He's coming with the hardball question. I like it. I know. Probably like one of the hardest things I've ever, and it's actually kind of what we were talking to off air before we started, was the Brandon Young's injury that when I was a coach at South Range in his senior year, and he unfortunately breaking his leg. I think it was our 11th game of the season that year. That was the first time, regardless of the talent level of the player, that I've had a player get seriously injured during a game. And I'll be honest, that was gut wrenching for not because of the talent of the player, but just to have a kid like that get hurt very seriously in a game. That's always like your fear as a coach, seeing one of your players get hurt. That's the last, whether it's your player or the other team's players, you know what I mean? You don't want to see that. And that's the worst part of coaching, in my opinion, is when players get hurt and get hurt severely and then they lose their seasons or part of their season in another season. That's definitely the toughest part of being a coach.
Seeing that was the first time that ever happened, and God forbid it'll never happen again, but
Right.
Do you think that experience made you more prepared for handling a situation like that in the future if God forbid it were to happen?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, if you don't learn from situations like that, you're not doing your job as somebody who teaches young people. Like you've got to be prepared and things like that, little light knock on wood,
Right.
They can happen and you hope that they don't. But when they do, you hope that you're prepared and able to, get that kid the care that is needed as quickly as it is needed. That situation still, I can picture the whole thing in my head, like it happened yesterday. And it's something that will always be with me. And, like we talked about, it's awesome that Brandon, he's playing college soccer now. He got to finish, he got to play basketball that year. He got to win the state championship for the Raiders. He was on the mound when he closed it out. You know what I mean? So that story has a great ending to it. But that is tough, but you got to be prepared. You got to take things seriously.
No joke, goosebumps, because that's just a story you can't write when you talk about Brandon Young.
Yep, absolutely.
Let's go from a bad memory to a good memory. You were able to take the South Range team to a state playoffs. Put into words what that experience was like and how much it kind of fuels you to try to get there again.
Let's start with the fuel you part because that's I still have yet to watch that game. The Final Four game. We lost in double overtime. There was 2 minutes and 30 seconds left before we were going to penalties when they snuck one in on us on an oddly bounced ball that just bounced their way. But that group of kids have set the benchmark for me as a coach not because of the fact that we went to the Final Four, but because of the way that they became a team. And that is something that I've stressed all along. And I stressed to those boys before our season began. We've got the talent, but we've got to come together. And that's something that I've taken to Salem and I take very, very seriously. That if we're not a team first, none of it's going to matter. You can have all the talent you want, but if you're not a team, you're not going to reach your goals. You're going to fall short. Or if you're lucky, you might get it. Don't get me wrong. I'm sure there's a team or two that's not liked each other quite a bit and won some championships of some kind, but you have to have that bond. You have to believe in each other. You have to play for each other. It can't, and I know it's cliche and corny, but it can't be the name on the back of the jersey. It's got to be the crest or the logo on the front, that you're playing for. But that's the biggest thing that I take away from that group is how close they were, is the reason why we were able to accomplish all that we did. We would have been good no matter what, no ifs, ands, or buts about it. We had lots and lots of talent, but the fact that those boys believed in each other and played for each other, that's what made that team special. I still have the article from the Vindicator from that game, and it's laminated and it hangs in my office at my building, and I see it every day, and it's something that I strive for. It's not all about winning, but we all know that we love to win. Right. You know what I mean?
Oh, you said it before. People love winners.
Yeah, they do. And there's no better feeling than knowing that between your coaching staff and your players, you guys gave everything you had for one another, and you went out there and we were able to put together and come out with that way. And then at Salem, we go ring the heck out of that victory bell afterwards. But it's just one of those things that I'm adamant about as a coach. Be a team, play for each other, and things will start to go the right way real quick.
You talk about what fuels you, Coach. I guess just to follow into that question, what about Coach Mike Bailey gives them an edge in every matchup?
I think it's just I'm dedicated to our teams. I really, really want to put the boys and girls in the best position to play their best. And that's what fuels me. Like, we had our scrimmage last night, and I've already watched over 3 hours of film this morning here, watching what was going on and getting some ideas ready for practice tonight. And I think Travis and Kent both share that enthusiasm and that attention to detail that can set you apart. I'm big on scouting, and not a lot of coaches are. And I prefer to go, like, Huddle's amazing, don't get me wrong. And Huddle's one of those things where you feel like you can go out, and I have enough connections where I can get the films traded and that, but I want to go watch as much as possible. I want to be there and pick up on little things that you don't notice on film. But just the preparation that goes into practice, that goes into film sessions, that goes into game day is, I think, what helps set our team up to succeed the most.
Earlier, we talked about the big ticket game on both the schedules. Talk a little bit more about the schedules as whole of a whole, and some of the things you're so excited about this season, and the opportunities you have, and the teams you get to play, and what the overall expectations are for both teams.
Sure. Let's start with the girls this time. So the girls' schedule, we got ramped up a little bit this year. We added some more quality, higher tier opponents, which is going to be great for the girls. Like I said before, the beauty of our league is that we only play each team once. So that part of it is fantastic, because it allows us a lot of opportunity to go play other teams. Our conference is a solid conference. Marlington's always a very good girls program. That between Marlington and West Branch, I think those are the two ones that we've really got circled. But at the same time, we're not the type of team, like, we don't take anybody lightly. Like, that's why we play the games, right? Anything can happen on any given night. But I think our big goals as a girls program is win the league is our number one goal. And these super districts that they do in soccer now, where we've got a lot of new teams that we don't get to see during the season, makes it exciting, makes it intriguing. I've said I think it should be win the league, and then let's play for a district championship. Let's get there and let's see what happens, because I think we have the talent enough to do it. And then I think you guys probably know as well as I do, just being sports fans, once you get to the district, you win a district championship, anything can happen at that point, because teams are believing, teams know nobody there is a slouch at that point, but everybody's playing really, really well, no matter what sport it is. The boys side of it, the boys, I always say, John Collin always used to tell me there's light bulb moments for kids and for teams. And we just had those light bulb moments over the weekend on the boys side. We had our alumni game on Saturday, and it was the best the boys have played. And it was the first time we actually had the vast majority of our what we anticipate being our starting 11 for that game. And they played, and I know, don't get me wrong, I know it's an alumni game. There's some older guys out there, but the things we were doing were so phenomenal.
Those are bragging rights, Coach.
They are, for sure. Absolutely. Absolutely. And we had a shutout. So, hey, it was great. But yeah, it's just those little moments. And like talking with the schedule, on the boys side, we've got, we play Crestview, who's going to have another really solid team. Our league, Marlington, is just a monster. And it's who we're chasing after. And we're excited for the chase. We feel like we're at the level now where that game can go any way. And the boys are seeing their hard work really pay off right now. Things are going really, really well for them. And we just got to continue to put it together on the training ground every single day and continue to practice hard and believe in each other. But yeah, it's going to be a really, really fun season on both ends. And I know this probably sounds crazy, but I'm so excited for those weeks where, Monday we got a girls game, Tuesday we got a boys game, Wednesday we got a girls game, Thursday we got a boys game. Like,
don't try to call Mike Bailey.
Bring it on. Like, I'm excited for it. And Kent and Travis are as well. We wouldn't have taken this if we didn't know that was definitely going to be one of the realities here real soon. And it's exciting. It's a real exciting time of year.
Coach, my final question for you, and just something to leave the viewers with, for those who may not know you, what is your favorite part about coaching, and what are some things outside of the sport of soccer that you try to teach your boys and girls?
My favorite part of coaching is hands down, and I'm sure the vast majority of coaches would say, is the relationships you build with these kids. It's so fun to watch them grow as players and as students and as just human beings from year to year. That's the best. My favorite part is when I get a wedding invitation from a former player, or they call in. Like I had for this past weekend, I had multiple players reach back out because I coached at Salem on the JV side a long time ago. I'm from Salem. I know a lot of the people. Just like, hey, I can't be there, but can I donate some money? You know what I mean? So it's people showing that they care about where they came from, and you were part of that to help build that. That's definitely the best part of it. And what was the second part of your question? I apologize.
What are some things outside of the sport of soccer that you try to teach your boys and girls?
Goes back to that saying I had where I said, stay even. I had one of my former players just reached out to me a little while ago. He's a traveling nurse, and he told me that he still to this day says to himself and to other people that he works with, stay even. So that way, don't let your emotions.
That's real life too.
It is, and it's something that you can incorporate in everyday life. And a lot of my players have taken that and built it. And that brings me pride because I learned it from somebody that I have a ton of respect from my college coach. So it's a great thing, and I think that's like a big one for me. Is like the kids still remember me yelling "stay even" and all that, and they've applied it to their real life.
So you former college player, do you ever try to kind of get back, like in practices, go toe-to-toe with your players or try to get back in the game, or have you officially hung up the cleats?
So I don't try to go, not on the big field. No thank you. That involves running, and like I just said earlier, if you can't run, you can't play. So I stay true to that. I live that mantra. But I have what I do for a living is I coach soccer. I have a training company, and I do one-on-one individual training stuff. And that is like, I'm active in it. So like I get to kick a soccer ball thousands of times a week. And I have the greatest job in the world, in my opinion. But that part of it, yes, still active, still playing balls all the time, still teaching. But as far as getting out on that field 11v11, no, thank you. No, thank you. Those days are gone.
I want to remind people that the comments are live. If you have questions for Coach Bailey, we'd love to hear them, and he'll be love to answer his social media questions. We have so many people tuning in. They're so interested in Coach Bailey. I can see the numbers popping up. We have Brian Tolnar at 1:00. You are more than welcome to hang with us for the duration of the show, talk some golf. I don't know what your golf game's like, but he gives a tip of the week every week. Well, so if you need a tip.
My golf game is that I don't golf because I don't like to be frustrated. But I will probably leave because I got to get ready for our practice. I mean, you guys have been awesome. I greatly appreciate it. This is anytime that I can come and talk about the great kids that we have in our programs at Salem on both the girls and boys side, we're all for it. And whether that's myself, Travis, or Kent, we greatly appreciate what you guys do here. And it's awesome.
Since you are heading out real quick, when do you guys open the season, and what's the first game on your slate?
So for the girls, we play on the OHSAA's Friday Night Football Initiative. I don't know if you ever heard of that. So they do basically the first week before actual high school American football starts. They do what they call Friday Night Football. And a lot of teams within the state take that on. And so we on the girls' side are playing United at United. That's our first game. United's become a rival of Salem here, just down the
Columbiana
road.
County,
Yep, down the road. It's become a rival. So that's the first game for the girls. I'm really, really excited for that. It's a week and a half away right now, which is crazy to me. And then the boys, it's a Saturday. I believe it's the 21st of August. I think.
Right after football.
Yeah, and we go to United again.
Right.
And that's another, like I said, it's a rival for the boys, and it's a big game, and they've got a good program over there, and we're excited to go over to United there and get our test in.
We look forward to the start of the season. We wish you the best of luck. We thank you so much for giving us your time, giving us the first hour of this show. Very gracious, and we look forward to the success that you're going to bring both those programs come this year.
Thank you. Yeah, appreciate it. It's a group effort, and like I said, with Travis and Kent, we feel confident in our coaching staff and our assistants that we have. It's going to be an awesome year.
All right, we will take a quick timeout. On the other end, Brian Tolnar from Mill Creek Golf will be joining us on the MP Vivo Heating and Air Conditioning Hotline. Thank you so much for Mike Bailey for joining us, and we'll take a timeout on Running Point, brought to you by Greenwood Chevrolet in Austintown.
At Greenwood Chevrolet, shop with confidence knowing we're ready to go the extra mile for you. With the largest selection of used vehicles in the Valley, backed by the Greenwood Advantage Warranty. Only at Greenwood Chevrolet.
New things happen.
So I'm looking forward to this.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, that audio is still not coming through.
All right. What's up?
The commercial audio is still not coming through. I think something might have gotten pulled out.
Did it get pulled out from there?
Is that white cord you have somewhere?
Is it this that went in?
Here, I'll take care of it.
Okay. That might be.
That's probably it.
Okay.
No
All
problem.
right, guys. I'll see you. Thank you
Bye.
so much.
Thank you so much for coming.
Sorry to cause a problem. Thanks a lot, man.
Yep. Welcome back to a Wednesday edition of Running Point. We just got done with our conversation with Mike Bailey, the head soccer coach of the Salem Quakers, both boys and girls. We have a good luck comment from Randy Dominguez, and we definitely appreciate the comments. We did get a question last minute that we didn't get to throw into Coach Bailey, but we'll get that to him at some point in the season, and we'll be able to talk to Coach Bailey again. We'll see what his game day playlist is. But for now, we join Brian Tolnar, who is coming from us live for the first time from Mill Creek Park. Brian, it's exciting for a new era and to hear and to see you for face to face for the first time.
I'll tell you what, it's pretty cool. I got all set up, ready to go here, and it's neat for a change to be able to do it this way.
And like always, we want an update on what kind of things have been going on in Mill Creek and what people should be excited about at Mill Creek Golf Club.
Well, I'll tell you what, we certainly had a very busy weekend this past weekend and busy week. We finished up the Nota Begay Junior Tournament here on Monday and Tuesday, and now we're heading into some golf outings this weekend. Very, very busy. We have one on Friday. We have 3 events on Saturday. We also have a night golf outing on Saturday up at the Wick Par 3, which will be one of our first outings we've ever done up there, of which we have like 3 or 4. So, to be able to host those events and to see what the kids shot here on Monday and Tuesday was spectacular. We had a little girl from New Albany, which is down by Columbus. She ends up shooting 10 under for 2 rounds. She shot 66 in the first round with a 9. And made 17 birdies in 36 holes. So she punches her ticket to the National down at Coshawty Pines in Louisiana. And it was nice to be able to host them for a week and bring folks back into the Mahoning Valley again for hotel stays and restaurant dining and the whole 9 yards. So good impact for our local community. And now we're starting to gear up with high school golf season, and all the teams are out practicing, assembling. We've got the Cardinal Classic coming up here, and it'd be 2 weeks from Friday. And the Vindy's Greatest Golfer, I want to say Vindy's Greatest Golfer, but it's just the greatest golfer now on next Friday. So we've got a lot of action, a lot of opportunity. We still have our family fun nights here at the golf course on Friday and Saturday evenings. We'll keep with those as well. And just a myriad of activities going on at the Wick Recreation area, from adaptive softball, the dancing, the Shakespeare in the Park, our concerts on Wednesday evenings at the Morley Pavilion, you name it, rackets and paddles, recreational hikes, just a little bit of everything going on right now. So nice to see everything in full swing as the kids are, getting back to head to school here in another, 2 weeks or so.
So now that you said high school golf is getting started, and we have our first scores actually, and last night East Liverpool winning a try match with Oakland and Brook. Who are some local golfers that people should really keep an eye on, and some golf teams that people should really keep an eye on when high school golf kind of makes its glorious return very, very soon?
Well, I think you got a couple here locally. Obviously Canfield probably has the most juniors and seniors coming back, so I think that they're going to be very healthy and could make a very deep run. When it comes sectionals and districts, and possibly make an appearance at the state tournament come late September, early October. From the girls' perspective, Poland girls are always very, very solid from top to bottom. Canfield girls they're young, but I think they're extremely well set to being able to make a run. We'll see how they do with a lot of freshmen and sophomores, on that roster in the lineup. Cardinal Mooney boys team is not very deep. They actually joined with the girls because they didn't have enough girls to come out, so it's a co-ed team, similar to what you have at South Range. South Range has always been strong, year in and year out. They've been pretty steady. I expect them to be in the mix, come the end of the year. They've been out practicing as well. And I just think it's, that from a team perspective, there's only a handful of teams that really have a deep enough lineup to go and shoot the scores that you need to shoot to go as a team, locally. I think you'll have some individuals. As for teams, I think there's probably a handful that have an opportunity to go play at the state tournament this year.
And we got to see Michael Porter from McDonald's shoot such a good round of golf a couple of weeks ago. Is he one of the golfers that you really have to watch out for from McDonald in the local scene and hopefully advancing even further out of the local brackets?
He is definitely one of those. I mean, I'm not sure how deep the team is over there at McDonald, but as an individual, I think he's got a legitimate shot of qualifying and making a run at it. There's, shooting the scores that he did, obviously at Avalon Lake, shooting, 63 and rounds in the 60s all summer, playing some of the junior tournaments that have gone on, whether it was Northern Ohio PGA or Hurricane Tour or AJGA. He's certainly played well, and he certainly showed that he could play well under pressure with the best fields. And I think that really is makes a strong case, come individual time in qualifying. Unfortunately, I think our individual qualifying spots went from 4 to 3 for this region. So there'll be one short. You're just going to have to play a little bit harder, based on the enrollment numbers up here. So that'll be a little bit of a deterrent in getting an extra golfer or two, coming from Mahoning, Trumbull, or Columbiana County. But, we'll see what happens. And, obviously Michael Porter is certainly extremely well versed at playing tournament golf, and weather tends to dictate how well you play and what scores you can shoot when it's raining or it's cool out and the ball's not flying as far as it is during the summer. So I think he certainly has an advantage by playing the amount of tournament golf and competitive golf with the level of competition that he's played against compared to maybe some of the other schools in the area.
Now, what kind of things are going to be prevalent to look forward to when you talk about high school golfers and how they can succeed? I mean, like, what's so important at that age to really succeed as a high school golfer and to keep developing as you go through freshman to senior year?
Well, I think at the high school level, what's most important is the depth on your team chart. Every team's got one or two very good players. It's the 3, 4, and 5 spots. I mean, 6 players will play in your high school matches. You'll take the low total of 4 scores. A little bit different when you go play sectionals and district. The lineup gets cut from 6 to 5. However, you still are taking those 4 scores across the board. So it's very vital that you have your 2nd through 5 positions being able to play well and really hold you in there, because your 1 and 2s traditionally will go up against the 1 and 2s across the board with the rest of the teams and have not so much an advantage, but I think, where it gets done is how well your 3, 4s, and 5s are playing. If you've got 3, 4s, 5s, and 6s in your roster playing, poorly, it doesn't matter how deep your roster is, that the 2 guys up top can't really go deep enough to really make that big of a difference to pull you over the hump. So it's vital that these 2nd tier, the mid-classmen, the sophomores and the juniors on these lineups, continue to play well and hold their team in there to give them the opportunity to go to the next level and to be able to carry on. And I think that's where, a lot of our teams in this region are really falling into the trap of, not having enough depth, when it comes out as sectionals. Yeah, a lot of them will get through sectionals, but it's very tough to compete if you don't have a strong down lineup in your roster. That midsection makes a big difference. If a guy shoots, your first 2 players shoot 76 or 72 right out of the gate, if you're putting a 90 on the board at 3, 4, 5, and 6, you're not going to go very far. But if you can keep those 3 and 4s, shooting around 80 to 82, or maybe even shooting a 78 or sneaking in a 79, I think that is going to bode well when you're taking 4 out of those 5 scores or 4 out of the 6 scores during the season. So, you got to eliminate the big number, which is usually your 5 and 6 in the lineup. And I think if you can control how your 3s and 4s are playing, I think you've got a shot of making a deep run, come playoff time. But, it, like anything, it comes down to practice and the time and effort that you put in. The great teams, listen to your interview with Mike Pryor from Salem, no different than their sport compared to golf. It's how well you get the rest of the players to believe in the team and work together as a team, I think, is vitally important. The kids that traveled all summer to play in golf tournaments like we did as kids, we had a very good program at Hubbard when I played there, and won a lot of sectionals, won a lot of districts, went to state numerous times in golf, won a lot of league championships. But we were a very close-knit bunch, from when I was a freshman to when I was a senior in high school. You all played together, you all traveled to tournaments. tournament schedule is not like it is, today, where all these national events are coming in, and your regional events. You played a lot of local tournaments. You were in Cleveland, you're in Columbus, you're in Toledo. It was more driven inside the state, so you got to see all the players that you would see at the sectionals, regionals, and districts. So how well you had to practice to be able to compete at that level with the type of players and the competition that you were going to see, come September and October. So I think, that's really the difference in, having that bunch that hangs out together, that travels together, that practice together all summer long, whether it's competition or just practicing, down the line, I think is vitally important in building a good team chemistry when it comes to golf. I mean, we had a formula at Hubbard that seemed to work, and it was a tough formula to break through. If you were a pretty good golfer, you could do it. But to be able to make the Hubbard High School golf team, we basically had a roster of 2 seniors, 2 juniors, 2 sophomores, 2 freshmen, and 2 at large. Which your 2 at large were always going to be your older classmen that just couldn't break the seal. They're going to outperform a freshman or sophomore 9 times out of 10. So it was very tough to make the roster. But one of the things that Tony Ganeri did in our program was, the juniors and seniors really took the lead in taking those sophomore freshmen and even some 8th grade players under their wing and traveling to tournaments. If you're in 8th grade, up until your sophomore year, until you get a driver's license and you're allowed to have the car and go travel all over Ohio to play in these events. The juniors and seniors really, carted all the freshmen and sophomore around. So, I mean, you're on the road, you're eating together, you were staying at hotels together, you were traveling, you were practicing together. And I think it made a really good formula. And I think if you take I want to say 22 or 23 years that Tony Ganeri was there, I would put his record up with just about anybody in the area on number of victories. I think we lost about 4 matches in the 4 years that I played. We went undefeated. I think my sophomore year, we went to state my sophomore year. We lost 1 time, my junior year. My senior year, I think we lost 1 match as well. So, building that team chemistry and making that bond with your players, I think is vitally important. Yes, golf is an individual sport, but when you play it as a team at the high school level, it makes a difference when your guys, generally care about how well your other players are shooting. And that, goes back to the early discussion with your 3s and 4s have to play well. But if you're not ushering in those freshmen and sophomores at the 5 and 6 spots, if those are the type of players that are there, basically an entry level type of player as a freshman, you're doing yourself a disservice because you're building them to improve their game as the year progresses. And you want everybody to peak, come the end of August, September, when you hit you're finishing up at your regular season and you're getting those opportunities to play. And I think having the opportunity to play 18 holes, we had one event that started, which is actually here, the Cardinal Classic in a couple weeks, was started by Canfield High School. Now Mooney runs it, but it was an 18-hole tournament because all your high school matches are after school and you only really have time for 9 holes. So having the endurance after you've played a good 2 months of 9-hole matches, going into your sectionals and your districts and stuff, being able to have the endurance to play 18 holes under tournament pressure is a little bit different than playing just your 9-hole match at stroke play. So I think building the endurance and, being able to play on weekends 18 holes to keep your legs fresh because you're walking and you're hiking, through the terrain of, all the golf courses that host regionals and districts, and giving yourself the opportunity to go play Scarlet and Gray down at Ohio State, I think is vitally important. Now with the inception of having some of these invitational events that are 18 holes where kids will get an opportunity to take a day off of school here and there to play in it, I think are vitally important, to continue on, because 9 holes is vastly different than playing 18 holes when it comes down and you have to put a score up.
Coach, you talk about the difference in the 9 and 18 holes, and that being some of the pressures as well. And what you've seen throughout throughout years of Mill Creek Golf and the kids you've seen go through there, what would you advise them to spend more practice time on, the driving range or the putting green, and why?
I think, like any student, if you had an hour to spend on practice, and we'll just use an hour, and the teams that I played on, spent days at the golf course. I mean, you'd get there at 6, 7 o'clock in the morning, you go hit balls, you go out and play, you'd come back in, you'd hit balls, work on what your areas that you struggled a little bit, you chipped and putted. spent a lot of time on the putting green, went back out and played 9 holes, come in and chipped and putted before he went home. So I think, now there's so much going on. There's so much more activities, from a kid's perspective, social interaction and clubs and, you name it. When I started as a freshman at Hubbard, they didn't have soccer until my freshman year. They didn't have volleyball until my freshman year, which would have been in 92. I graduated in 95. So there was a lot less activities. There was a lot less sports that you could play. Now there's so many different options for kids. There's a lot to do. But I think if you have time, and if it's an hour, if it's 2 hours, I would spend at least half of that time chipping and putting, because if you look at your scorecard at the end of the day, about 55% of the score is within chipping and putting. So if you can control what you're doing from, say, 50 yards and in, I think you have a dramatic advantage on how well you're going to score, how well you're going to be able to get the ball up and down. Anybody at this level can hit it up by the green in 2. It's what you're doing, getting it up and down. Am I hitting it, a chip shot 5 feet and giving myself that opportunity to make putt or make a bogey or get out with a double when I could make an 8 or a 9 on a hole, I think is vitally important. And chipping and putting certainly allows you to do that. I think, all the kids hit enough golf balls throughout the course of the summer. Their tee to green game is gonna get them in play and allow them scoring opportunities. It's the ones that make the putts and the ones that get it up and down on a regular basis throughout the course of their round that I think, really drives how these players are going to score and where you can save some shots. Because literally, if you can save, 4 or 5 shots by, chipping it close and 1 putting over the course of nine holes, and if you're going to shoot, 42, that turns a 42 into a 38, shoots a 46 into a 42. So, anytime when you're in these tight matches, shots are very, very important. And I think if you can save it with a short game, I think that's where you're going to have a huge advantage.
The PGA Tour moves to Memphis this weekend for the WGC FedEx St. Jude Invitational. Talk about this course and what the golfers should expect this weekend.
FedEx St. Jude's always been a great tournament on the PGA Tour. I've got mixed emotions with it because traditionally this would be the Bridgestone Invitational at Firestone. So, locally this would be in our region of the country. When Bridgestone decided to move their headquarters to Memphis and Nashville and basically move their hub into Tennessee, you kind of saw the writing on the wall, 4 or 5 years before they ended up moving everybody in. And I think, with that, it's certainly sad to see the tournament at Firestone go. But with what FedEx does and the amounts of money that they raise for St. Jude's, if you had an opportunity to ever go there or done some research on it, it's phenomenal what they do for kids, battling all kinds of illnesses. So at no charge. So, I mean, the amount of money that's going to be raised this week, if you're going to move to a place, Memphis, Tennessee would certainly be the place to have it just for what they have from a background standpoint. As to the golf course TPC at Southwind, one of the tougher TPC properties that you'll see on the PGA Tour. Yeah, it says 7,200 yards on the scorecard at the end of the day, which doesn't look like too much from a PGA Tour professional standpoint and in tournaments and stuff that those guys play from a distance perspective. But there's 2 par 5s on the golf course that make the rest of the golf course play a lot longer. So I think only having 2 of those par 5s, and both of those par 5s are about 530 yards, so they're reachable by everybody in the field, means you're going to have a healthy dose of 400-yard or 450-yard plus par 4. So I think you're going to see a lot of similarities to this event compared to Colonial Country Club, which is another one of those 68 to 7,200 yardage golf courses when it comes to PGA Tour standards. A lot of bunkers come into play. I think they have 100 plus bunkers. You're looking at 11 or 12 water hazards that'll come into play. So, you do have some rolling fairways. It is a bomber's paradise, but they have a lot of bunkers that you want to avoid off the tee, especially, when you're hitting your second shots around the green as well. So you have to be precise off the tee. You want to avoid some of the hazards to keep your ball in play, to give yourself those opportunities to score. Very similar to what you see at TPC of Sawgrass when they have the Players Championship there in March, is what you're going to see this week when you look at the WGC. FedEx St. Jude Classic. It's just definitely a bomber's paradise. I think you're going to see a lot of low scoring there. However, I don't think you'll see record low scoring. I think you're going to look at like 15 or 16 under when it comes to week's end. This is the golf tournament that saw its first 59 on the PGA Tour ever recorded, and that was in 1977 by Al Geiberger. So it's it's certainly a place where you can go low, but the golf course has gotten tougher through the years with the redesigns. A lot of history there, especially going in Memphis. A lot of celebrities would link their names up to a lot of these golf tournaments. Danny Thomas is one that not only linked himself up with this golf tournament, also linked himself up with St. Jude, and to lend your name, when you had the Bob Hopes of the world, the Dean Martins, the Jackie Gleasons, all of those players. Sinatra had a tournament. That was like the thing to do. Bing Crosby at the AT&T Pebble Beach Pro-Am. To have a celebrity like Danny Thomas, who was synonymous in the state of Tennessee, in the Memphis area, link himself up with that tournament in the very late 60s, early 70s, gave a lot of prominence to the tournament. So this is a tournament that's been going on for over 60 years on the PGA Tour, and it's because of guys like Danny Thomas that got behind it, and the community that got involved. And obviously now FedEx and Bridgestone Golf is a big proponent of that. But being able to see that, I think, is huge for bringing a PGA Tour event, such as up at Firestone, and the things that we've gotten to see over the years, and the PGA Players Championship that they had this past year up at Firestone. I think you're going to find, talking to some of the folks that I've talked to that sponsor either some players on tour, I think you're going to see a PGA Tour event back at Firestone in some facet as well. As COVID hit, obviously was a bad thing for the PGA Tour and a lot of professional sports. But I think for the sport of golf, I think you're going to see a lot of those events, the WGC events in particular, that went overseas. A lot of the players don't want to jump through all the hoops to travel and go through all the protocols and the quarantining and everything that they have set in place. That I think you're going to see a couple of the overseas events come back to the United States, and I think Firestone's going to pick one of those up. So, as we have mixed emotions with the FedEx St. Jude Classic and the event at Firestone, which would have been this week because it was technically our event, I'm a little biased and I'm still a little I don't know, still have a chip on my shoulder about the event. And anytime that you lose an event from your community, I think that it stinks. Not only from having it in your community to host it, but from a tourism perspective. I mean, a lot of the things that we do here, we want to bring people to our community. We want to fill the hotels. We want to fill and give back to our community, which gives us everything, from a tax base to be able to operate. So, and I know the folks in Akron kind of feel the same way, but just a great golf tournament this week as we head in, preparing ourselves for the FedEx Cup race and the playoffs. This will be the last WGC event of the year as we head into the back half of the year and go through the playoff structure.
All that being said, who's your Power Five this week? Who are your sleepers, and who might you expect to win this weekend in Memphis?
Well, we've got a couple sleepers on the board this week. We've got two unusual ones. Number one is going to be Phil Mickelson, obviously a three-time runner-up at this event. He's demonstrated that he certainly plays, TPC of Southwind extremely well. If he drives the ball accurately, I expect him to have a lot of opportunities. He still hits a ton of greens at 51 years of age. I think if he hits enough greens, I think he's going to give himself enough opportunities to putt. And if Phil Mickelson putts it well, I think you could see another performance like he had at the PGA Championship a couple months ago, and when he beat Father Time there to win that. Historically, he's only shot about 10 or 12 under at each of these events, getting the runner-up. I don't know that 10 or 12 under is going to be enough this week. Thinking more of the lines of 15 or 16 under is going to be the outcome to the winner. But I think Phil is certainly playing well enough, and I think he's hitting his driver accurately enough to be a contender this week. Our second sleeper is Victor Hovland. Probably has played better than anybody over the last 3 or 4 weeks. Very solid from tee to green. Probably hitting his irons better than he's ever hit in his entire career. And I think if he does that, he's going to give himself a lot of opportunities, to be able to go at those greens and make some putts. He's very similar to Morikawa. Just quietly he's around there, and all of a sudden he shows up and knocks your socks off, and picks up a victory. So I think he's going to be a candidate, not necessarily in our top 5 this week, but one of those guys that certainly can contend. Coming in at number 5 is going to be our Warren native and our local PGA professional, Jason Kokrak. Southwind is a perfect combination for him. Not only does he drive it straight, he drives it far, and I think that's a huge advantage on the 11 400-yard plus par 4s that he's going to see and encounter this week. And I think that for him, it's going to be a similar feel to what he had at Colonial, when he picked up his win down in Texas. So I think it's going to play similar to how it played down there. So I think that's a huge advantage for him, and he's doing his traditional 2 weeks on, 2 weeks off, and we'll see him probably this week and next week as well. So Jason Kokrak is our 5th spot. Coming in at number 4, Jordan Spieth. Certainly has the accuracy off the tee. He has enough length to contend. He'll be able to hit some par 5s and 2. His putter has always been his savior for his game. I think it's been streaky as of late. However, he's only played 3 of his 4 rounds in just about every tournament. If you look at those across the board, 3 out of his 4 rounds are very solid. And he always throws 1 round in there, 69, 70, 71, 72. I think if he eliminates that 1 high round this week, it's going to allow him to reach that 14, 15, 16 under par number. But I think if he throws an even par in there early out of the gate, it may be tough sledding for him. But, he certainly showed signs of life at the British Open a couple weeks ago and really gave himself an opportunity and played well over the course of the weekend. But I think he's going to need to take 4 solid rounds to be able to get it done. Number 3, Xander Schauffele. What can you say about Xander, our reigning U.S. gold medalist in golf? He's on a red-hot streak, even going into the Olympics this past week. I think he's played probably as good, if not as solid as Victor Hovland has over the past 3 or 4 weeks. Just hasn't gotten it done. I expect him to put 4 steady rounds together, and I think he's ready to make a run. If not this week, certainly come FedEx Cup playoffs. He's one of those guys that we talk about, week in and week out when it comes to majors and some of these invitational events, the WGC events that have the elevated status. I mean, the winner this week is going to get 550 FedEx Cup points. So I think it's certainly vital that if he wants to make a run at Player of the Year, again, he has to have a strong week this week, and he's got to make a deep run into the FedEx Cup playoffs to be in that conversation. So I think Xander is going to be a formidable candidate this week. Number 2, Daniel Berger, the only player to win this event back-to-back, albeit in 16 and 17, always plays well at Southwind, has enough firepower to do what Jason Kokrak's going to do this week and overpower those 400-plus yard par 4s. And I think he's not only got 2 wins there, he's got a number of top 10 finishes there. So it's a facility that, for whatever reason, he always tends to play well. And I think as a player, when you head into these events and you've had some past history, you can really draw from that when you're playing and looking forward, and you're looking for some positive thoughts to make those birdies and give yourself some opportunities to go forward. And then coming in at number 1 this week is Justin Thomas, defending champion there, really lit it up. Last year, I think he shot like 19 under, a couple off the tournament record. Obviously, coming off a disappointing Olympics run, I expect him to bounce back this week. It's an event that's very close to home for him. Growing up in Kentucky, just in a neighboring state of Tennessee, I think what he's going to be able to do is to be able to come home, spend some time. You're going to play conditions, similar that he's used to playing in and practicing in Kentucky when he's home and doing his prep work for tournaments. And I think he's just going to bomb it off the tee. I mean, if there's a golf course that's fitted for Justin Thomas's game, it's certainly Southwind this week, and how well he hits it off the tee is really going to dictate how well he plays, because he's certainly chipping and putting it well enough, and he hits a number of greens when he's hitting a lot of fairways. So Justin Thomas is our pick this week. I think he's going to be accurate enough off the tee to give himself a back-to-back run, similar to what Daniel Berger did in 2016 and 17.
I know it's boring programming, but I'm on the same page as you. I wrote Justin Thomas down before the show. I think he's absolutely the front runner this weekend. Ty, who do you have winning this weekend in Memphis?
Everyone's zigging, and I'm gonna zag. I have a feeling about Jordan Spieth this weekend, and I don't know why. I don't know if I've just been a big fan of his for a while, and that's it or not. But I just have a feeling with Jordan Spieth. I mean, in the top four, ranked four this weekend, and I agree a lot with Brian. I mean, it all depends on how he sets himself up off the tee. We already know his putting game is going to get him out of a lot of situations, but it's all about how he's going to set himself up. But yeah, Jordan Spieth is who I'm rooting for this weekend.
Brian, that's Ty's first ever pick on Running Point. Do you approve?
I approve. He made the Power 5 this week, so he's in pretty good shape. We just need 4 good rounds out of Jordan, and he should be hoisting the trophy at week's end.
Ty, you got the Brian Tonar stamp of approval. That means you're officially on board. So talk about the favorite part of the program, the tip of the week this week. What have you got for all the golfers out there listening that need a little bit of help on their golf game?
You got it. Golf tip of this week is going to be a similar in one aspect to chipping and pitching, but a little bit different in, when the ground conditions get firm or when the ground conditions get soft and you have a lot of green to work with. It's going to be the bump and run. Got a lot of green, like any shot that you're going to hit. Number one, it's always dictated on the lie. So you want to make sure you have a very good lie. So it's a clean hitting area between the club face and in that golf ball. And, the first thing that we're going to do, we're going to set it up like a normal chip shot with a couple exceptions. We're going to go feet close together. We're going to aim it a little bit left to target, which will allow our leading edge of the club. So the leading edge of the club that you see here, this lower part, the sole, we want to make sure that sole gets underneath the golf ball. If I had some golf balls here, I'd be able to show you. I wonder if I have any in the desk here. So if we have a golf ball, we want to make sure this leading edge is hitting underneath the golf ball right here. That way we strike underneath it, it pops it up, we get it to roll, like a putt. The golf ball has a better chance of finding the hole, going in the hole, if it has the opportunity to roll in the hole. To be able to avoid the bouncing and the hopping, I think is vital when you're hitting a chip shot of any kind, whether it's a flop shot or a chip and run or a bump and run like we're talking about today, where you want the golf ball to come out a little bit lower. We want that golf ball rolling to the hole because we have the best opportunity to get it in the hole. So from a setup standpoint, we want our feet very close together. We want to make the lower body as quiet as we can. From a weight distribution standpoint, I'm a right-handed golfer, but we'll do this for the right and left-handed golfer. We want the majority of our weight, about 75% of our weight, to be on our front foot. So for the right-handed golfer, that's our left foot. For the left-handed golfer, that's our right foot. So that'll help us keep that leading edge working its way down, so we get on that leading edge underneath the golf ball when we're hitting the shot. Club selection is going to be the key in bump and run. We have a lot of green to work with, so we have a lot of area to cover. We don't want to make a very big swing. Going back to the high school golf that we talked about earlier, getting kids to chip and putt well is vital. Club selection is going to be key. How much green you have to work with is vital as well. So if we have a lot of space between ourselves and the flag in the hole, we want to make sure we get something low and running. We want to make the smallest golf swing possible. So say I have about 50 feet between my feet and where the golf ball is in relationship to the hole. We're on a nice clean lie. We've got a good shot. I want to take possibly a 7-iron, an 8-iron, or a 9-iron, something with very little loft compared to a pitching wedge, sand wedge, lob wedge. Everybody gets in the habit of always grabbing a sand wedge, a pitching wedge, or a lob wedge when hitting a chip shot. Don't always have to use that. One of the things that comes to my mind is Jay Haas, when he played in the 1995 Ryder Cup, chipped a lot of shots with a 6-iron and a 7-iron. Had a lot of green to work with up at Oak Hill in Rochester, New York. In order to be able to make those little small golf swings that are very good under pressure, as opposed to the big sweeping swings of Phil Mickelson hitting those high flop shots under pressure, you're one blade off from blading that golf ball 50 yards over the green if it doesn't come out right. So if we can keep the golf swing as little as possible, it's going to be a huge advantage for us. So in order to do this, we want to pick that 7, we want to pick that 8, we want to pick a 9-iron, something with low loft, so when the ball hits the green, it's going to run 3/4 of the way. So ideally what we're looking to do is, if I'm 50 feet away, I'm going to take my 8-iron, for example. I'm going to set up like I would hit a normal chip shot, weight on that front foot, 75%. Golf ball position can be either on your back foot, off your back toe line, or it could be slightly behind your back toe line. because that's going to make the ball come out and scoot a little bit lower if we need it to come out a little bit hotter than normal. So again, the golf swing is going to be very small. So it's going to be a lower eighth of what your golf swing would normally be. We're going to use the loft of the club to allow the golf ball to fly a quarter of the way of the distance that we need. And we want to let the ball run and roll the other 3/4. This will guarantee us, number one, we're making a small golf swing, so the margin for error is a lot less. And number two, it's going to allow us to cover ground, because if I were to do it with a lob wedge or a sand wedge, and if I hit it a little bit too soft, the ball is going to not only stop very quick, it's not going to roll very far as well. So not only am I flying it shorter, the ball is going to have the tendency to check up. And now we've got an opportunity to possibly 3-putt. But if we can get that chip shot within 5 or 6 feet, we have a legitimate shot of walking off of there with the 1-putt. If you get it closer, that's great. Tap it in and move on. But we're eliminating 3-putts. We're eliminating hitting another chip shot. We're eliminating having, not being able to see where the golf ball is going in relationship to the hole. So if you hit that, you're going to see how it's tracking up there to say, you know what, maybe I left it 3 feet short, but the ball was breaking hard from right to left or left to right. So it gives you an idea of where your putt's going to be as you play that next shot. I always relate the short game, and especially putting and chipping, to shooting pool. Where do you want to leave that cue ball for the next shot? I think is vitally important in making sure that you're prepared to giving yourself that opportunity to make that putt and to get the golf ball up and down. And that's where you're going to save a lot of the shots when it comes to when you're trying to score around the green. If I could make a par and eliminate a bogey, or if it's a par 5 and I chip it up there, give myself an opportunity to make birdie, I knock it in, I'm good. I make a par, I'm out of there. Or if I need to get it up and down, or if I was in a tough spot off the tee and had to punch one out, need to get it up and down to make a bogey. So if you can make that bogey and eliminate the double, the triple, I think, being able to bump and run, certainly gives you an opportunity to get the golf ball to the hole. And another one of those reasons why we choose that 7, 8, or 9 is because we're not putting that backspin on the ball too. It'll have little to none. When it hits the green, it's going to hit and definitely release to the hole. So I think, being able to make that smaller swing is vital. And I think having the golf ball release to the hole is certainly vitally important too, because it gives you the best opportunity to get that shot close. So weight's going to be on your front foot. Golf ball's going to be on your back foot, if not a little bit behind your back foot. The key is on any chip shot, keeping our hands ahead. So as I'm hitting a chip shot, and we'll demonstrate this a little bit, my hands from a setup position, my feet are close together, my hands are ahead, which is allowing me to keep my weight on that front foot. We want to keep our hands low. It's almost like we're making a putting stroke with a sand wedge. We're trying not to flip the club this way because that gets the leading edge working its way up. And we're trying not to get it like a normal pitch shot where you take it back and follow through. Because our follow through, remember, the higher that we're going to get, the higher that golf ball is going to fly. The lower that we keep our hands, the lower that golf ball is going to fly. And that's really what we're trying to do when it comes to hitting those bump and runs. We want to make sure that we keep the ball low and running, because we got a lot of terrain to cover. And I think, if you do that, you're going to have a huge advantage on getting some of those up and down when you have a ton of green to work with.
I got to say that was so cool getting the visuals for the first time and some of the things that you can actually see. Great job, Brian. Before we let you go, Olympics have been all week.
Yep.
Golf aside, what has been your favorite Olympic event to watch in the last couple of weeks?
I'll be quite honest with you. I have not seen any of it, to be honest with you. Not even the golf. I mean, I saw some of the highlights. We have been so busy with outings and events and prepping and a lot of moving parts going on right now, not only with the golf part of the operation, but the recreation part of the operation, and archery and disc golf and the whole 9 yards, that I haven't had the opportunity to watch that. I'm more so Winter Olympics, because I'm home at a decent hour and you can catch that. I mean, the curling and the bobsledding and all of that stuff, I think are fun. I just unfortunately haven't watched much of this year's with everything that we've got. And I haven't watched too much of the PGA Tour in the past couple of weeks either, just because we've got a lot of moving parts. We're in outing season. We've got about 70 outings, and we've got 3/4 of them are backloaded towards the back half of the year. So it's really keeping us busy when it comes to operating and putting in some time and a lot of long hours right now. So the 3-on-3 basketball sounds intriguing. I'm not sure how it plays out. I did hear that and was like, I never heard of that, and thought that sounded pretty cool. But Huge fan of obviously the United States and everything that we do from a team perspective, and rooting for our country, which I feel is the best country on the planet. And to be able to see our athletes win and bring some medals home is super important. But unfortunately, I haven't had too much time to watch. I haven't even seen the opening, or hopefully we'll get an opportunity to catch some of it before it wraps itself up.
Man, you got to stay busy. Nothing wrong with that, Brian. Thank you so much for joining us today. And as always, we'll see you again next week.
You got it. Sounds great. Thanks, and have a good week, guys.
That was Brian Tolnar, our weekly guest on Wednesdays at 1 o'clock from Mill Creek Golf Course. And he does such a wonderful job with everything that he does down at Mill Creek. We love talking to him. And I gotta say, to see the tips of the week and get visuals on it was just icing on the cake, because you really get to see, not have to put together that vision in your head. You can actually see what he's talking about when he's talking about keeping your hands low, and the different things that you have to do when you're chipping to make that ball roll instead of bounce.
It's also appealing because Brian knows this area and knows the courses from this area. So he's giving you tips straight from the source that are going to help you with courses from and around this area. So if you are a golf advocate, or if you just golf casually around this area, these tips are going to be helpful to you because they're all relatable to the hazards and things you're going to face on courses in the area.
All right, we are going to take a quick break. And when we come back, we are going to continue our previews of high school football. We are going to dive into the Steel Valley Conference. That is coming up next on YSNLive.com. Running Point, brought to you by Greenwood Chevrolet in Austintown. Welcome back to a Wednesday edition of Running Point, brought to you by Greenwood Chevrolet in Austin. Alongside Ty Bartell as we continue our journey into the middle of the week on a Wednesday. Ty, we continue our high school football previews as we jump into the Steel Valley Conference today. And I don't think we can start with anyone other than Ursuline, the preseason number 4 team in the Division 4 spectrum. What can we say about their schedule, what they're returning, and maybe some of the prospects for the Ursuline Irish?
Well, looking at the Ursuline Irish, we'll take a quick look at what they lost because what they kept was a whole lot. But players that they lost on the offensive side, wide receiver Matt Reardon, wide receiver Terrell Dilworth, and then offensive lineman Anthony DeLuca. These are going to be some holes that they are going to miss. They were all very productive players last year for the Irish, but I don't think they're going to have much issue replacing them. Also on the defensive side, players lost was Ryan Pegas, defensive lineman, Dante Walker, linebacker, and Luke Campbell, defensive end. Again, these are guys that are going to be replaced because the way Ursuline really has set themselves up, they were very deep last year talent-wise. So they have young guys that are going to be able to step right in. Some of these young guys to watch and some of these guys that are going to be stepping into these positions offensively, I don't think you could go any further. And we could talk right off the bat about QB Brady Shannon. And he's going to be the reason why this Ursuline Fighting Irish offense is going to be so dynamic and so productive this year.
Brady Shannon made it into the Northeast Ohio top 25 recruits list. And you talked to how special that quarterback is. And the fact that he's currently committed to play for UCF for baseball just speaks about how well-rounded of an athlete he is.
Yeah, absolutely phenomenal athlete. On top of that, you get senior and running back DeMarcus McElroy, which was a very dynamic runner too last year for the Irish. He's part of that 1-2 punch of Brady Shannon and DeMarcus McElroy out of the back. And I mean, all that paired with Brian Frasco and Colton Ross, 2 junior offensive linemen from Ursuline that are also going to have another year of eligibility, but are going to take a huge step up from last year, who already had productive years last year. This offensive line that's in front of Shannon and McElroy is going to be very good. Pair that also with Dean Boyd, senior wide receiver for the Irish, that's going to probably be Shannon's number 1 target. This is an offense on the Fighting Irish that's looking to be very dynamic and very good all around.
An offense that was electric last year might get even more productive this year, which is a scary conundrum. And it's why they're ranked number 1 in the preseason Division 4 polls. What are they getting back on defense? And what kind of things do you expect from them from the defensive line? I know their defensive line is going to be great, and I think they're returning quite a bit of defensive linemen. But like a lot of teams we talk about, maybe a couple of question marks in that secondary.
Yeah, maybe a couple of question marks in that secondary, but I'll tell you, some of the guys that they are returning that are going to be a force to watch. You're going to check out William Burney, defensive back junior for them, and Ja'Kylan Irving, senior defensive back for them. Those are 2 guys that are going to be in the backfield a lot, defensive backfield a lot, that are going to be hovering around. They're going to be the ones that are going to need to contain that pass game that a lot of teams, such as the Fitches of the world, utilized against Ursuline last year and was able to get a lot of offensive touchdowns against the Irish defense last year. So those 2 are going to be key to stopping the pass game. Also, John Edmonds, a linebacker senior on Ursuline, is very productive too. I mean, he's one that he's a ball hawk too, but he's one of those that can play pass coverage and run coverage. Very, very good dynamic linebacker. And also you talk about that defensive line, Michael Branch, defensive tackle junior. He's one of those guys lines up nose guard wise, man, and he bullies his way down low. And you highlighted that defensive line. It's already solid, but one of those guys, he's going to be the key force, I think, on the defensive line.
Ursuline lost in the playoffs last year, but we all kind of understand that because of some unfortunate things that had happened, they were without a lot of their key players in that playoff game. They got to be itching to get back on the field this year and prove to everyone and themselves that they were kind of worth that playoff run and it wasn't a fluke, and they're going to get back to what they wanted to get back to last year. I think this might be one of the programs looking with their eyes wide open at a state championship this year.
I think you're absolutely right, Anthony. And I think that sour taste that was left in the mouth of the Irish last year is really resonating with them going into this season. And they really feel like they have to do it that much more to prove to everybody else that they think they got snubbed last year with everything. And we know the situation and COVID made everything wonky. But yeah, they definitely were not at full strength in that playoff game with guys that were missing in it. But looking at their schedule this year, this is not a very easy schedule. They did front load it a lot too. August 19th open up with Bishop Hartley. August 27th at Hickory. September 3rd at Chardon. September 10th at Fitch. September 17th at Warren Harding. September 24th they play at home versus Cheney. October 1st at St. Vincent St. Mary. October 8th versus Boardman, 16th at East, and then October 23rd is the Holy War at Cardinal Mooney High School. Not at Mineral Ridge, but at Cardinal Mooney, but at Mineral Ridge High School.
How about that? For the first time, the Holy War is going to have in an official home team with two. Obviously they used to share Stambaugh, but now Mooney has their own home field that they're going to play at, and Ursula's going to have to travel for that Mooney game.
And it's gonna be fun to see too. That Mineral Ridge Stadium was looking beautiful too, and I think it'll be gorgeous too, especially on a late October night for the Holy War. But looking at that schedule, Anthony, I mean there is some tough games in there for the Irish, but they did not go easy on themselves. They're gearing themselves up for a playoff run.
Week 1, right off the bat, in Hartley. I mean, Hartley's high in the preseason rankings as well. And that's not exactly going to be an easy task for Urson. And we're going to find out a lot about what they're made of week 1 right off the bat.
Yeah, absolutely. That's going to be a tough game right off the bat. Luckily, it's home, but then it starts a string of 4 straight away games that also include teams such as Fitch and Warren Harding that you have to play at and away for. That's going to be tough for the Irish, too. These are not easy away games at all.
No, they're not. And when you look at their schedule and the fact that they've never been a team that shies away from travel or have had teams shy away from travel to come to them, they're going to be well prepared for the trips that they will inevitably have to take if they make a deep playoff run. That's one of the things that Mike Pavlansky talked about last week when he was gearing up for the Canfield season. He wants his kids always used to being a long road trip, and Ursulin's going to be another team very used to traveling, and the long road trips of a deep playoff run not going to face this team.
No, and I mean, they did load their schedule up with a lot of good passing teams, too, to really test that secondary and that defensive secondary. And I mean, it's a good strategy going into the season. You got to make sure your guys are ready going into the postseason, and you're going to test them real well throughout the regular season with some very good opponents that you know are going to be a passing first offense.
Excited for the Irish and what they are going to bring to the table this year. Let's move on to a team I know you're so high on in the Cheney Cowboys, and a team that has a very big upside coming into 2021. What do we have with Cheney?
Well, right off the bat, we'll look at some guys that they lost to. Offensive players lost. Terrence Harris, a tight end. Bryant Douglas, a wide receiver. Mytwan Cottle, offensive lineman. Anthony Colton, a wide receiver / cornerback. And our slot wide receiver, Raheem Trailer. They also lost Delshawn Petrosky, of a defensive back who kind of started coming into his own at quarterback a little bit last year too and started having success later down the road. They lose that. But some guys that they're going to be bringing back, and it's a lot of defensive guys. And let me tell you, it's part of this defensive line that Cheney started building last year, and it started becoming real dominant. You're looking at J.R. Tellington, a senior defensive lineman, Clive Wilson, a senior defensive lineman, Jawan Freeman, junior defensive tackle, and then Jason Hewlett is a defensive back, junior defensive back. But you're looking at that J.R. Tellington, Clive Wilson, Jawan Freeman, those 3 up front are going to create nightmares for run offenses, and it created nightmares too. We saw last year, I saw it firsthand, Fitch's run game get almost completely silenced by Cheney at times because of just the size up front of the Cowboys.
Their ability to penetrate the line was a really good aspect of their defense. They felt like they squeaked through little tiny holes and were always breaking up plays in the backfield last year.
Yeah, and I mean, the thing with their offense, and what I'm curious to see with Cheney's offense is what they're kind of utilizing. There's some questions on what the quarterback situation is going to be, but I'll tell you, the one offensive lineman that they have in Rolando Bruno, 325 pounds, 6'4" junior, man. He's a big guy, and he's huge protection up front for either running backs or quarterbacks. So he's the type of guy you want on that offensive line, and he's going to give you all the protection you need and all the protection that Coach Emil needs to try to figure out a game plan, because like we said, a lot of those guys on the defensive line, they can play both sides. So Cheney has a lot of size on both sides of the line. So going to be curious to see what Coach Emil can draw up in the running game and see if he could throw in some good passing schemes as well.
Ty, look who we have coming sashaying into the studio.
The legendary Scotty Mincher.
Scotty,
What's up, guys?
how we doing, buddy?
I'm great. I'm ready to go today, and today we have Ty with us as
You
well.
do.
So
Well,
we're the three amigos.
the
man.
three amigos. Ty, you got to put on the headphones so you can hear our buddy Ty. But man, what an opportunity to talk to a little bit of Scotty today.
Yeah, absolutely. We always laugh at Scotty. He always makes us laugh every time he comes on the show at Power Hour. So getting a chance to see Scotty on Running Point too, what a treat here on a Wednesday edition.
All right, so back to Cheney's defense and their schedule. What kind of things does their schedule really premiere?
Well, we're going to be looking at Cheney's schedule. We already know opening it up with Fitch. They're going right back to the good old days of opening it up against Fitch, and that's going to be a tough game right out the gate, and it's going to test the Cowboys, who I think are going to take a huge step this year, and it's going to be a huge test right out the gate for them. Following Fitch, you go right to Boardman. You're at home versus Boardman. You're home versus Cardinal Mooney. You go at St. Charles, at Campfield, at Ursuline, at Painesville Harvey, home versus Howland, home versus Harding, home versus East. And if that doesn't tell you how much of a gauntlet Cheney's trying to put themselves through, it's a tough schedule, but the Cowboys think that they're ready for it. And you saw they scheduled up to in basketball. They're doing the same thing in football. Their motto, man, if they're going to breed athletes, they got to put them up against some of the best in the state, and they're not shying away from competition.
Scotty, we know you love toughness and you love tough schedules, no matter what sport or level of the game we're talking about. Man, what advantages do you think tough scheduling kind of brings to a team?
Yeah, I'm all about it for sure. When PJ Fetco, the former head coach out in Mooney, when he was still the coach there, and I would get interviews with him before I jumped aboard this great winning machine at
There you go.
YSN. He would always talk about how they love the high expectations and they didn't want run away from it. To me, it hardens you and makes you stronger. Like the old saying goes, what doesn't kill you makes you stronger. And not to get too far off the high school topic, but to kind of tie it in to the high school level, even in college, being an Ohio State fan, if you look at their recent failures in the college football playoff and then coming up short, not winning a national title, sometimes I think if they scheduled just powerhouses out of conference, more of them, and it goes for a lot of schools, if they scheduled more of them, they'd be even better prepared for the playoffs than, say, playing like an Akron and beating them like 70-7. So, I think it's only an advantage, I think, playing a tough schedule. There's no disadvantage to it other than, it could possibly keep you out of the playoffs, but I think that's something that could be used as a bright spot or a positive when you're talking about losing to opponents that are juggernauts and top of the line. I think people could look at it and say, yeah, they lost these games, but they still shown they can hang with the big dogs. I mean, look at Ursuline in the past. I remember them going to the playoffs with a 500 or a below 500 record. So I think they're the prime example.
Scotty said, "What doesn't kill you makes you stronger." Well, hopefully none of these teams get close to death. But Ty, when you look at the schedule for Cheney, what's one game that you kind of circle and say this game's going to be really important to their success, or if they drop it, maybe some of their struggles?
Well, outside of that Fitch game, the one game that I'm really kind of looking at that I think is going to be big out of the gates is going to be that Cardinal Mooney game September 3rd, because you're going August 20th at Fitch, August 27th versus Boardman. Those are two tough games, and regardless of where you come out of that, you prefer to come out 2-0, but realistically, you might be more around the 1-1 aspect with Boardman and Fitch both being looking to be tough opponents this year. That's going to be a big game. In conference game 2 against Mooney, who looks to take another step up. Mooney and Cheney both hovered around the same place last year. Cheney beating Mooney last year too. So you have that rivalry, and we know Coach Emil had ties to Mooney at 1.2, graduate of Mooney. So there's that little rivalry there as well. So that I think will be a good game too. A week 3 game that I think is really going to either boost the Cowboys for the rest of the season, or it might be a hindrance for them that they have to battle through going through the rest of the way.
Cheney, a team that last year was young but athletic and made a couple of young mistakes, of course. But with youth comes the next year comes growth. Scotty, we all know that. What kind of things can you say about experience and what it can bring to a team, no matter what stage you're on? I mean, every athlete gets better the more games they have under their belt.
Yeah, and I think Anthony, that really goes. The more experience, the better in so many, in really just about any aspect of life. I've always kind of thought about it this way, like people talk about playoff experience, and I used to think when I was younger, is it really that important, or is it overrated? But living with a disability, again, this might seem like an odd time here, but living with a disability, I've had to have a lot of surgeries. I'm sure you have too, Anthony. And it's one of those things where every time I would go see a doctor and somebody that was going to perform a surgery, I wanted the older guy and the guy that was more had the more experience. So yeah, I think all it does is help you out. It's one of those things where you keep knocking at the door, eventually you're going to kick it down. And I think that could be the case for Springfield and Bo Brungard this year.
Scotty's looking at that surgeon intern saying, No.
I said no thanks.
No, thank
I'll
you.
go with my daughter who has 25 years of experience. So I do think that's a huge difference. Even looking at my favorite team in Cleveland right now, and it changes, but the Browns, if they didn't have that playoff experience last year and get to experience a playoff win and then a close game against a juggernaut Chiefs team, one of the top teams in the NFL, I don't think people would be considering the Browns as a legit, Super Bowl contender. But because of last year and what they were able to do, I think most people do consider the Browns a contender. And you get that experience, and then you still have the nerves and the excitement and the butterflies. But I think the second and third time around, when you have that great experience, you use the nerves in a good way. And it's the good nerves that help you when you get say, okay, we've been here before. Let's learn from this and continue to grow and get better and improve on what we did the previous year.
Man, Scotty, I love having you on the show. You're always bringing me joy because the ability to drop one-liners like you just did just a minute ago, and I had to get off camera real quick so I could just laugh hysterically. Man, I love it. You bring a lot to this show. We're gonna take a quick time out. Scotty will stay with us. We're gonna continue our coverage of the Steel Valley Conference as we go into previews of Mooney and East next on Running Point, brought to you by Greenwood Chevrolet in Austintown. Welcome back to the Wednesday edition of Running Point. We apologize for the audio problems with the commercials, of course. Ty Bartell, Scotty Mitchell, all on the program with us as we dive into the rest of the Steel Valley Conference, and we look at Mooney and what they bring back and what their schedule looks like. Ty, what can you tell us a little bit about the Mooney Cardinals?
Well, looking at Mooney this year, we'll look at some of the players that they lost before we go in the ones that are returning. Some players lost on offense. A.J. Pacheco was wide receiver for them. Kerry Hewlett, offensive lineman. Pat Guerreri, QB, strong safety. And Dan Lyons, wide receiver, as well as defensive lineman Will Scretta. Those are players that they're going to need to fill some holes with, but they got some guys returning, especially on offensive line. Defensive lineman Adam Garlock, he's a junior returning for them. Devontae Miller, a senior outside linebacker. And then that running back, Zaire Rogers, senior running back Zaire Rogers. He's going to be the showtime there, Anthony. And we noticed it last year. He started breaking it out and coming into his own. And it looks like Mooney's going to go with their same old ground and pound approach that they've done for years that started with Don Butchie and is kind of transformed and evolved to this now, and Zaire Rogers is that ideal running back for Mooney.
Don Butchie running up the middle. They'll never expect it. That was Scotty, you know a lot about Mooney. You used to interview their head coach and talk to their program. When you look at just the history of Mooney and the things that these players kind of wear on their shoulders to try to keep the tradition alive, what kind of pressure do you think that brings when they go into that gym and they see all the state championship banners and they see all the league championship banners and they have to try to live up to that?
Oh, it's definitely a lot of pressure, and sometimes in life, because you're not always gonna succeed, and you're gonna have hardships and times where you fail. But I think sometimes in life, we certainly seem to obsess at times about our weaknesses and how do we improve our weaknesses instead of just focusing on, okay, what makes us strong, what are our strong points here, and how could we make our strong point even more of an asset. And I think for Mooney in the shortened season, if memory serves me correctly, they went 2-6 last year. But if I remember everything right, they did have a pretty young squad as well. So they get guys back and returning. And it was a rough year last year, but I think this year they could learn from that, and the guys that are coming back that have that negative taste in their mouth, they're gonna want to get it out as soon as possible, starting in week 1. So I think they're gonna come back even hungrier than maybe they were last season. And not saying that they weren't hungry, but sometimes when you're young, when adversity hits, it could be a little too overwhelming. And to go back what we were talking about with the experience factor, I think now that they've had the taste of what it's like to play for Mooney, they'll be more prepared and ready to go this year. And I think certain guys that maybe struggled at times last year could hone their skills and really start to blossom for this Mooney program.
Little did we know we were getting Scotty the philosopher today. I love the knowledge drop, and Scotty with the life skills and the self-help love. So Ty, my buddy, my friend, when you look at Mooney's schedule, what are some games that you personally circled as important games to look forward to in the Cardinals season?
Well, running through their schedule real quick, and we'll run down the Cardinals. Are August 20th at Boardman, 27th at Hubbard, September 3rd at Cheney, September 11th home versus Lindsley, 17th home versus Fitch, 24th home versus East, October 1st at Brush, 9th home versus Harding, 15th at Steubenville, and October 23rd home versus Ursuline. Couple games that I have circled on this, and that's because I'm personally going to be calling them, is September 17th at home game Fitch and Mooney. I'm very passionate about both Mooney and Fitch athletics. I started really getting into Mooney, Waterloo, and Fitch athletics during the basketball season, and then girls basketball, boys basketball, started really getting into both of them, and started really falling in love with the traditions that are at Mooney too, and that whole history, as well as Waterloo's basketball program. But on a different topic with that, that's one game I have circled, and the other game I have circled, and it looks like as long as we're all good to travel down there, which we're hoping we are, October 15th at Steubenville. I think that's going to be a great game between two schools that have winning history, especially recently too, and just throughout years too, throughout the last decades, just two very winning schools, and it's going to be a great game. And I'm looking to represent the YSN flag when we go down to.
You know what I love about you, Ty? If you go down to Steubenville, you will rock Mooney like crazy, and you will have no fear of the absolutely crazy fans that Steubenville has. They will not be able to intimidate you at all.
Got a little taste of the Steubenville faithful when they came into Fitch last year, and I mean, yeah, COVID kept a good majority of them out, but the ones that were there were still loud and hardcore. So
now you're going to their place. There's a little bit of different atmosphere.
Oh, and COVID restrictions should hopefully be off. We hope we won't have to worry about that. So full capacity Steubenville versus Mooney should be fun, and that is a big game. I think Cardinal Mooney, very tough schedule going forward. They opened up Boardman, Hubbard, Cheney, which should be three tough games like we talked about. Going through that schedule, that Steubenville game coming right off of a home game versus Warren Harding, which again, is going to be rough and tough. This is going to be a back-to-back game where you go Warren Harding, which is a lot of size, a lot of physical play, right to Steubenville, which is the same exact thing before you finish up with Ursuline for the Holy War. These are two games, both Warren Harding and Steubenville, where you got to make sure you got your guys right. You got your guys physically rested and physically healthy going up against Ursuline, which I think will have big playoff implications these last 3 games of Mooney's season, especially.
That's two programs that have an abundance of tradition. And Scotty, while we talk about tradition, I'm kind of curious, what's your favorite or some of your favorite traditions? It doesn't even have to be high school, just sports traditions that teams carry that you really enjoy.
I would say some of my favorite are definitely when Virginia Tech in college football, when they come out and enter Sandman plays, that just every time, no matter what, that sends chills down my spine and gives me goosebumps there. So that's just a great one. You look at
Wrong Tech, Scotty. Wrong Tech. You got to, I mean, Georgia Tech. We roll out a car. We roll out a car. You're saying Enter Sandman.
Why'd I say I meant Georgia. Oh, I'm sorry.
No. You're okay. You can go with Virginia Tech.
Yeah.
I'm just saying, you know.
But I did thought I saw a YouTube video where they did come out to Enter Sandman.
They do.
Am I totally off base?
No, you're absolutely right. I was just making fun.
Oh,
I'm just busting you because it's
you're
Virginia
a
Tech
fan.
Right.
Okay, right. I got really nervous.
No. I was just busting your chops because you went with Virginia Tech instead of Georgia Tech.
Oh, okay.
I thought Scotty was going to say something way worse than a Tech fan. I thought he was going down a different road with that one. You were just busting me because you're get the censor part out.
No, I wasn't. I realized we got to try to keep this. I know the advisory.
The advisory's there.
Comes up for this show, but I try to keep it at least PG-13, at least for this show. When Power Hour starts,
then it's all bets are off.
Kid gloves are off. It's all off. But I mean, yeah, the Ramblin' Wreck. I mean, I remember hearing a song about that.
There you go. Well, yeah, it's our fight song.
Yeah, I remember hearing I had this Christmas album, and the guy would go through his favorite fight songs, and he would talk about the Ramblin' Wreck of Georgia Tech as being one of them.
I gotta find that fight. I gotta find that Christmas song.
Yeah, it was from like the 90s or early 2000s.
That might be my new favorite Christmas song. I haven't even heard it yet.
Yeah.
No, yeah, don't let me pressure you. If you want to go with Virginia Tech and their Enter Sandman down in Blacksburg, where it's a really hard place to play, you can go ahead.
And I also sticking with college football. It's hard for me to say this because they are a foe of the Buckeyes.
Can I just?
You know where I'm going.
I think I know where you're going, and I think I'm gonna have to when you say it, I'm just gonna have to put like a little censor bar over your mouth.
It's we can't jump, Anthony, but jump around, man. At the start of the fourth quarter in Madison, man, I'm like breaking my chair. I'm so excited when they play that. I'm just good. I feel like I could run like 10 miles. It is just killer, man.
Oh my, Scotty, you are something. Ty, let's get back on track to these football previews. We have to do East as we head into the end of the Steel Valley Conference preview, and we talk about the East Bears. like Cheney, a rejuvenated program that a lot of people are just excited to be back. What do they have returning, and what do their schedule look like?
I'm looking for East to make a big improvement from last year, and I think last year it was hard. And we got to remember too, Cheney and East, like you said, these are newer programs too that were coming up through COVID too. That was throwing a curveball to everyone. But these newer programs that are starting up, it's really hard to get a program started up when you have this kind of curveball thrown into the mix. But some players that they lost offensively, they lost Knowledge Matlock, an offensive lineman, and then on defense they lost a lot of big linemen: Vincent Steele, Sean Kane, Anthony West, all defensive linemen, as well as Jamez Brooks, outside linebacker. But returning, they got some pretty interesting players that are going to be returning. Dejuan Waller, senior wide receiver. Dwayne Irby is a junior offensive lineman. And then on defense, Javion Smith, defensive back senior. And then this is the tandem that I want you to watch. Javion Smith is defensive back, the senior defensive back for them. And then Tim Davis, cornerback, free safety senior for them. It's going to be part of this really good rejuvenated secondary that East is going to be bringing this year. And it's going to give passing offenses a fit, I think. And they're definitely going to contain the passing offenses a little bit better than what we saw last year. I'm really just looking, this is really just a good improvement step because there's really nowhere for East to go back, but they have all the momentum going forward now. They have everything bright future ahead of them now. They got their program pieces in place. They got another year under their belt. I think they got some pieces here that they could build around and have guys learn under and start building this successful program.
As we've been programming teams around the area, we've been saying, oh, this is a young secondary. This is a young well, not with East. My word is East experienced, and they are senior led, and they're going to have secondary that I guarantee will not be making the freshman, sophomore, secondary mistakes where kids get lost in coverage or where communication breaks down. These guys, if you're going to beat their secondary, you're going to just have to win one-on-one battles straight up. They're not going to have breakdowns in coverage.
No, absolutely not. And that tandem of Javion Smith and Tim Davis, I mean, both versatile in the secondary, but just play very good coverage too. And I mean, they're going to be the guys that you're going to be looking up to break up pass coverages, maybe get a pick or two, create some turnovers that might lead to an East win here or there.
Let me tell you, some of the knocks on the secondary players, they don't like to tackle. Not these two. They will hit you, and they will hit you hard, put you on the ground, step over you, and say, "Come back in this kitchen, and you'll see what happens next time."
And it might be a smart idea, too, to bring that physicality more on the secondary with all the defensive linemen that they lost going into this year. I mean, yeah, East has a lot of defensive linemen that they could replace with that and that they've had underneath these guys for years. But, I mean, you got the seniors now that are going to be in the secondary now and not on the line. Maybe that physicality and that toughness needs to come from the secondary and work its way forward through the defensive line because that's where your leaders are, is in the backfield, the defensive backfield.
Yes, I think so. I think when you look at their emotional leaders and their statistical leaders, they're both going to come from the secondary. And Scotty, going to bring you into this conversation. When you talk about leaders who are usually on a defense being the linebackers or the defensive linemen, you have your leaders in the secondary. What kind of different schemes do you think that brings to a football team in general, whether it be East or anybody?
I think a lot. And Todd was talking about how East has lost some guys on the defensive line, so maybe having to rely more heavily on the secondary if they have more experience there, it could be beneficial. I think a lot depends on the versatility you have in the secondary. I think there's times where you want to play tight and right up on the receivers, but then that means there's a risk you could be beat deep by a wide receiver, and then when you play too soft, you give up the quick routes underneath where they could just gash you. So you have to find a good balance, but I think a versatile secondary now, especially when you see guys that aren't the biggest guys having success and, really putting a stamp on defense. I mean, to me, it's almost, it's not as crucial or as big as having an elite pass rusher. I think that's the most important position besides quarterback. But on the other hand, you have guys that could cover. If they could cover those extra few seconds, you don't have to rely on as much getting pressure, and maybe you could just rush for and play back instead of blitzing and taking that risk and blitzing the house. So you want to have as much versatility as possible, but we've seen now you don't really have to be a huge guy, this big physical specimen, as long as you have some speed and you have good football acumen, good IQ, you can get the job done.
Ty, let's talk about East schedule and some of the teams they're going to have to face. And what are the games that you have circled for the Golden Bears? Ty, you got to unmute yourself, bud.
Oh, that's what that was.
Every time, right? Let's run through their schedule real quick. All right, take two on this. So August 20th, they're home versus Shaw. 27th at Warren Harding. September 3rd, they're at Niles. September 10th versus Ellett at home. 17th at Boardman. 24th at Mooney. October 1st at Howland. 8th at Campfield. 16th home versus Ursuline. 22nd home versus Cheney. The two games that I personally circled here for the Golden Bears that I think are going to be big games for them are going to be both that Niles game September 3rd and that 22nd game against Cheney October 22nd. The Niles game September 3rd at Niles, I think Cheney has a decent chance at going in there and upsetting Niles if Niles is not ready, with them trying to figure out that new quarterback situation over there. I think Cheney focused in on this year. The size that they have, they can give Niles some fits.
You mean East, right? We're talking East?
East, yeah, I'm sorry. East. I apologize, East. We were just talking Cheney, yeah. I was thinking, but no, yeah, with East, yeah. I was thinking about the Cheney game, too, that they have at the end. Yeah, East, though. East with Niles, I think with the way that East has their size and that secondary that they have, a new quarterback being inserted into that with that experienced secondary, I think it's going to give Niles some fits.
It's a very good point. I mean, that secondary can give whoever Niles puts behind their center some different looks and some opportunities to really have to think. And you never want your quarterback to think too much. You just want him to be able to react. So East, very experienced secondary might give some new quarterbacks some fits.
Yeah, absolutely. And then that last game too with East versus Cheney. This could be a big game for either team here. I mean, Cheney and East are both those teams that can take that next step, and it might be a huge game. Playoff implications might be on the line, too, this last game of the season.
And we just have to say how happy we are that matchup is back on the schedule and that we're able to talk about Cheney versus East. And so many of the matchups that the Steel Valley Conference has back that so many fans around the area that are nostalgic like to see back on the docket.
Yeah, and I mean, you can't highlight the East schedule without highlighting Cheney versus East being that last game of the season and being back. Beautiful to see that it's back, and hopefully, if it turns out as everything plans for both programs, they're going to be competing for something that last game of the season, and that's why I have that one circled, because I believe both these programs are going to take a step. We'll see how big of a step they take this year, but if it's a big enough step, this game could be very important come the end of the season.
So that concludes our Steel Valley Conference football preview. Tomorrow we'll dive into the MVAC Gray Tier as we continue our football previews on Running Point. We'll also be talking to Columbiana volleyball coach Jennifer Martin tomorrow at 12:30. So make sure to tune in for that. And now we bring in more Scotty. And Scotty, what kind of things did you bring to the table today that you really want to talk about?
A couple of things, Anthony. I saw, I think it was 4 days ago on the 31st of July. I read an article that your boy, your top boy, Patrick Mahomes, you have the hat on. I saw that his rookie card has sold, and it was about for 4.3 mil. It sold for. So my question to you, as you and Ty, is do you collect cards currently, or have you ever collected cards? And if so, yes, what's the favorite card you own? And then the second part of that, if you don't collect cards or anything like that, if you had the money, what's one piece of sports memorabilia that you would say, I gotta buy?
Wow, that is a loaded question. And first, let's just bring out the fact that rookie cards are going for $4.3 million, and the fact that cards are back. You know, they took a little dull period in the 2000s, but now all these 90s kids that are now having kids of their own to get back interested into playing cards. I think cards are making a rejuvenated comeback, and that's why we're seeing these cards start to sell for a lot of money again. I mean, before Mahomes went, Tom Brady's went for about $3.8 million a couple of months before Mahomes sold for 4.3. So playing cards are back. Now, I never personally collected sports cards. My brother has a whole couple of tubs full of them, but I was getting a kid when I had cards. I wanted Pokemon cards and I wanted Yu-Gi-Oh cards. That was my childhood.
You were a nerd.
I was a nerd, total nerd. And I'm not ashamed of it, because those cards are worth just as much money if you find the right person. So for me, personally, I didn't really collect sports cards. I never really got too much into it. I think the best card we have in our collection, I will say I was a big Brett Favre fan growing up, and I tried to rebel from my family in my early years. Instead of being a Chiefs fan, I was a Packers fan. So I do have a Brett Favre rookie card. It's not signed, so it's not going to be worth millions, but it's still Brett Favre rookie, him in his Miss uniform. So that's probably the most valuable card I have in my collection. Ty, what about you? You got cards? Are you a card guy?
I've never was a card guy, Anthony, and it's probably mainly because I was one of those 2000s guys where it dulled off too. So it wasn't really introduced to me, and it wasn't really something that I took interest in. Sports collection wise, though, I do collect and have an interest in bobbleheads a lot more than I do in the sports cards. And I collect a lot of bobbleheads whenever I get the chance of, mainly players that have come through Cleveland, typically for baseball wise. So like guys that I have, I think, a CC Sabathia Scrappers bobblehead that I like, a Lindor one, a Jose Ramirez Scrappers one. I also have some bobbleheads, I think an Albert Bell, an Omar Vizquel one that I got at a Cleveland game that I've collected there too. And I'll go to like thrift shops and I've bought ones. I think I have a Grady Sizemore one, a Travis Hafner. So I mean, like a lot of the bobbleheads I collect. And I mean, I don't know if any of them were worth money, but I just like to collect them. And there's something that once I finally get a nicer house and a bigger room to decorate an office with, I intend on putting them on full display, all on shelves and everything.
I was going to say, you have all these dropping, I have this, but we have no display.
Yeah, I need to get a display. It's just because this room's too small, and I don't want to start nailing stuff into this house. We need to get a bigger house soon. I need a bigger office so I could start displaying everything that I got behind me.
See, sports memorabilia for me. Let's see. I love jerseys. You'll see me rock a jersey probably 3 or 4 times a week on Running Point. So jersey buff, definitely Chiefs and Royals, but any jersey I think is cool, I'll grab. I think what's because his last question was if money wasn't an issue and something was so expensive and you had to get it, what would be the one piece you'd get? I mean, like, I don't know. I mean, I feel like I'm more of like if money wasn't an issue, I'd be packing a ticket to Arrowhead Stadium and see my first Chiefs game in Kansas City.
That's what I was going to say. Like, I'd rather have a ticket to an event, like a big sporting event, than actually like a piece of memorabilia. I'd rather just witness the moment live and have the story and the memory of saying I was there, rather than having that physical piece of thing that I could say I have this. I'd rather have it up here than I'd have it in physical form.
Like, this full disclosure, if I ever get like a ticket to a Chiefs game, I'm going. That's
the physical thing you want. That's the only physical part of it you want. And that's not even physical half the time. Now it's on your phone, so it's just an email that you're getting.
I will make sure to pay the charge to print it and then frame that ticket forever.
Screenshot it and never take it off your phone gallery. That's how we do it in modern days now.
I'm sure it's absurdly difficult to get a ticket to their waiting list is probably like nuts in Kansas City, because I've been reading about the Browns, but Kansas City's been right up there with Seattle as far as the loudest, if not one of the loudest. The decimals
world record
been through the roof. So
world record. Just saying, world record.
Yeah,
in Kansas City. Just saying.
They did break Seattle.
Yeah, they did. There was that year where they would go back and forth between who was breaking whose, but the Chiefs got the last laugh. And I always, because Corey Krisen, who works at WFMJ, he's a big Seattle Seahawks fan, so we always have this little debate. Seahawks Stadium is not a true open stadium because it curves. You know, it's not a dome, but it's not open. And they cheat a little bit with their decibels, but that's okay because we beat them anyway.
Well, I will say that I agree with you guys. I mean, I do. To echo Ty,
Corey McCray. I'm sorry, not Corey Krisen. I got my two Corys that I went to school with mixed up.
I love bobbleheads myself, but if I can, see anything in the world, I would probably say it would either have to be, I've already seen an NBA Finals game, so it either would have to be a World Series game, or obviously if the Browns made the Super Bowl and money wasn't an issue, like I don't even, they would have to I would have to be a part of some sort of program, like they would have to put me on, like, I don't know, house arrest or something like that, because I feel like I would be going so bananas I wouldn't even trust myself. So somebody like a security guard would have to be watching me if the Browns ever made the Super Bowl. I'm just telling you right now, if the Browns ever make a Super Bowl and they actually like win the Super Bowl, you may see a miracle. You may see the first ever man in a wheelchair get up and do backflips. But yeah.
Oh my.
I just thinking about it, man. It's like I could say with confidence that it might, the Browns winning a Super Bowl might make me more happy than walking would, and I don't know. That's pretty sad, huh, Anthony?
Well, I don't know. I mean, like, I'll tell you, when the Chiefs won the Super Bowl, I didn't do a backflip, but there was definitely some airage between my butt and the wheelchair. I'll tell you that much.
Were you bawling?
I'll tell you what. I cried when the Royals won the World Series. It was more of it like because it took longer. The emotions built up more. When the Chiefs won,
stunk for years.
Oh, thanks for that. When the Chiefs won, it was more like here we're in the Super Bowl. It's one game. It's 3 hours long, and the emotions were just like so compressed into one. And it was more of this like exhilaration than it was an exhale of emotions. So I cried a little bit more when the Royals won the World Series than I did when the Chiefs won the Super Bowl. I will say, more elation in my best attempt at jumping when the Chiefs won.
One thing I wanted to ask both of you guys, you and Ty, well, we're still on this topic. I was talking about with DJ today before I came on Running Point here with you guys. I was talking about the all-time great players that are in the Hall of Fame that haven't won championships. Do you still consider them all-time greats, like a guy like a Karl Malone or a Charles Barkley, to use the NBA, for example? But where I was getting at, a lot of people talk about LeBron and Jordan in the NBA and that argument, but I wanted to know from you, Anthony, because Tom Brady has an absurd amount of championships, and most people do consider him the GOAT right now, but they consider Patrick Mahomes the best quarterback in the league right now. I wanted to know from you, let's say Patrick Mahomes, hypothetically, and of course he could win more than this, but let's say he tops out and he wins 3 or 4 more tops. So he has 4 or 5 Super Bowls. Can he still be considered the GOAT even with Brady having more at 7? Or would it still always be Brady because he has more championships? What's your thoughts, Anthony and Ty?
I don't think I'm the right guy to ask this because I'm always going to be a homer and say if my guy has 4 or 5, World Series rings, of course he's going to be the GOAT.
Try to pretend Pat Mahomes played for the Vikings or something, or the Browns.
I got to say, if he gets – because a part of championships is getting lucky. Obviously if you win 7, you're doing something extremely right. But you could argue that there's a couple in there that the ball fell his way. The Panthers Super Bowl, he scored last, but it was a tight game. The Rams Super Bowl where they got a game-winning field goal. So you could argue that some things just kind of fall your way. So the splitting hairs between a couple of championships, it's saying that Pat Mahomes wins 5 and Tom Brady doesn't win anymore, so he's at 7. The difference between 5 and 7. I think you have to dive a little bit deeper than championships and see some of the other stuff that both quarterbacks do in their career. I don't know about you, Ty, but I think if you're that close with championships, then you got to dig a little deeper than just how many championships a quarterback has won.
Well, the thing is, too, by the time it's all said and done, Tom Brady, by the time he retires, will probably retire tops of the NFL passing yards list, probably tops in touchdowns list, too. So he'll be the standard for everyone to achieve in pretty much just statistical categories and championship categories. So it will be everything to strive for. I think there could be an argument, depending on what his stats are, right? If his stats are matching up, if he's exceeding, and we're saying, he has more touchdown passes than Brady all time, he's maybe 500,000 yards off, has 5 championships, had better completion percentage. There might be a serious argument there because then you're looking at statistical things. I agree with you that you can't put all the chips in, all your weight into championships. I understand that, and it has to come from statistical play too. For me, though, whenever GOAT debates get brought up, and I said this too when I did a Running Point earlier this year, with basketball sense, but I'll say it with the football sense too. I take GOAT talk, and when we talk greatest of all time, a little bit differently, and it's not necessarily about just one player. I consider it more a pool of players that you pick from, and someone that qualifies in that pool is someone that can carry not just a franchise, but can carry a league, is that face of the league, is the guy that they point to and say, you're going to be our top drawer. You're going to be the face of the league. You're going to be what sells our merchandise. You're going to be what's going to be putting butts in seats for the next foreseeable future, because you got to remember, sports is a business as much as it is athletics. And that's why you see, basketball wise, 90s was Michael Jordan, 2000s quickly transitioned. It was Kobe and Tim Duncan. Those are the guys that I put in those pools. LeBron James is there. Giannis is getting there. But football, same thing. Before Tom Brady, it was Joe Montana. As quarterbacks go, right? You have your different positions for different things in football. So it's a little bit different than basketball. I understand that. But I do think Patrick Mahomes is that next player that's going to be pulled from that GOAT tier that is going to be the guy that this is the guy. Brady has 2 more years left. This is the next guy that I think everyone looks to, like they look to Brady as this is the guy. This is the guy you need to beat. This is what you have to play up to be against once Brady retires. So I do think Mahomes moves into that category in the way that I think GOATs work and how I made my own definition with it, because I think it's up for interpretation, but that's how I interpret it when I talk GOATs. I think it's more of a pool, a category of players that define generations of sports.
Okay, Scotty, we have like 10 minutes left. I'm going to put you on the spot here, okay? Because we had a challenge.
Oh boy,
we had a challenge yesterday to see, because I don't know if you watched a lot of Power Hour, if you watched it when it was Trivia Tuesday and how good Ty was at Trivia Tuesday. I'm going to challenge you to see
I
if
remember how
to
good
see if
Ty was.
see if before we go off the air, can you come up with a question to stump Ty Bartel? Are you up for that challenge?
I can. I'll try.
I know you're found you got a laptop at your expense. Challenge has been thrown down. So we got let's see, it's 2:47. We usually get off by 2:54. You got 7 minutes, bud. You got 7 minutes. Clock's ticking.
Okay, I'm gonna try. Local is what I know best. So, and I know Ty's like just unbelievable with, but I think I may have. I'm thinking in my head right now. I think.
You don't
Go
have
ahead,
to.
Anthony.
No, I was just gonna say, like, you can rattle off questions. I mean, if you get one and you stop time, you can do another one. I mean,
okay.
there's no limit to how many questions you can ask. You just have to stump Ty in the next 7 minutes.
I do have one right now for
All right,
Ty.
here we go.
If we can do that, Ty, I want to know from you, who was the winning pitcher for the Indians in Game 1 of the 1995 American League Division Series. Game 1, the game where Dennis Martinez hit the game-winning home run. Who was the winning pitcher?
Uh-oh.
It's a good question, Scotty. Let me think of this here. Because in 95, that was their first trip to the World Series. In 95, that was the year they played in the ALCS. They played the Mariners. And that was the game. I remember the game because I remember watching Kenny Lofton go from second to home. Let me see. If they played the Mariners in, I think that was 90. Yeah, that was 95. They won because they went to play the Braves. And in that Game 1, they played, who was it that they played? I'm trying to remember who the Indians played in the, it was. So it was the Mariners. Okay. Yeah. So if they played the Mariners in the ALCS, then that means then in the ALDS, I'm trying to think if this was the Yankees or if it was, no, it was the Red Sox that year because they played the Yankees in the ALCS in 97 and they played the Yankees in the ALDS in 97 and the Baltimore Orioles in 97 in the ALCS. So they played Game 1 against Boston then. They won that one. I think you said it was extra innings because you said it was the one that Dennis Martinez hit the walk-off single in. So in that one,
walk-off home run.
Walk-off home run. Yeah, I'm sorry. So the winning pitcher then, I don't think it was someone who would have started it. I think if there was anyone in the bullpen at the time, it wasn't their closer because he wouldn't have gotten the win. He would have gotten a save with it, but I don't think there was blown save. I want to say out of the bullpen, I think his name was, I want to say it was Hill. If
you get this,
it was Ken Hill, I want to say. I think it was Ken Hill out of the bullpen because I hate
you, Ty. I hate you. You stop. That was my best one I had, and you destroyed me, Ty.
It took me some time. That was a good one. I had to talk myself through it because I had to remember. I couldn't remember for a second if 97 was the year that they went Yankees and Baltimore, if it was the year they went Red Sox and Mariners, because I knew they played, and there were so many historic games there. I was just trying to piece the timeline together.
God, you were born in like 96. I was born in 88. I watched that whole game as a kid. I didn't even know this. You weren't even born yet.
I'm such a big historian for things that I love, man. And Cleveland baseball has always been something I've been so passionate about. That's one of my fortes is baseball trivia, especially, is something I love.
Scotty,
that was my best bullet in the chamber.
You got 3 minutes. I mean, can you hit one at the buzzer?
I'm gonna. Okay, Ty. I got another one.
Here comes buzzer beater from Scotty.
I got into who won. Now this one, I think you're gonna get it with these, but it just popped in my head. I've always been a big NBA fan. I don't know if you are as of now, Ty. Most people here aren't, which I could respect that with the super teams and all. But who won the 1997-98 NBA regular season MVP award?
In 97-98, it would have had to have been Michael Jordan in that season because the year prior was Karl Malone. And I know Karl Malone, I don't know if he had in between, but that was Michael Jordan's last dance, was the 97-98 season that they beat the Jazz in 6.
Was it Michael, Scotty?
It was Michael. I thought I would maybe I should have asked about the year prior. I thought I was maybe gonna get you to think Malone and stuff.
Yeah, I thought about it because I know their first matchup. That was because watching The Last Dance, I remember that's what Michael said. What fueled him in Game 5 in his 5th championship series in that series against the Jazz was Karl Malone winning MVP. Is what fueled him with it, and then he came back, won MVP the next season, and won it again in 6 games.
Scotty, good try. We'll try again next week. You'll have another shot at Ty. You're coming on every Wednesday at 2:00, so maybe you get another good one in the holster, and we'll give you the last 10 minutes and see if you can stump Ty before the buzzer hits on the running point.
All right, I'll be racking my brain all week. And Ty,
you almost got it.
What can I say? El hombre, man.
El hombre.
You're the man.
Un hombre malo.
Yes, sir. Thank you, Scotty. Look forward to seeing some more questions you have to come up with.
All right. So tomorrow on Running Point, we continue our football previews as we dive into the MVAC grade tier. We also have Columbiana volleyball head coach Jennifer Martin joining us at 12:30. Tune in for that. Thank you so much for tuning in to this edition of Running Point. We want to give a special thank you to Mike Bailey, the head coach of the boys and girls soccer programs at Salem, and also Brian Tolnar for joining the show today. So thank you to them. Have a wonderful rest of the day. We are out of here. Power Hour coming on from 3 to 4. Don't go anywhere for that.